Along the southern tip of Chile, tucked within a maze of windswept fjords, lies the tiny village of Puerto Caldera. Weather-worn houses cluster at the water's edge, and salty old fishing boats jostle with modern skiffs in the harbor. This quiet place harbors a legend-old Santiago Molina, a fisherman as weather-beaten as the coastline itself. While his hands held countless lines and nets, his tongue drew the villagers. Tall tales of behemoth squids and mythical sea creatures flowed from his lips like whiskey from a bottle. Children listened wide-eyed. Adults dismissed him with amused grins, their chuckles swirling with the ever-present sea mist. It was October 2nd, 2006, dawn tinged with an unusual stillness. The ocean had the sheen of liquid glass, unmarred by the usual whitecaps. Something stirred beneath Santiago's skin, a mix of veteran instinct and a prickle of undefinable unease. Yet a lifetime on the seas had taught him not to second-guess a good catch, and there was money to be made. He shoved off in his faithful but battered boat, the Rosa, its motor puttering as it left the serenity of the bay. Beyond Puerto Caldera, the Pacific revealed its true, immense self. Santiago laid his lines, weathered eyes scanning the horizon. Chile's southern waters teemed with life, and some of the things lurking below had their legends. Sharks, monstrous sharks, whispered to prowl these icy depths, ancient beasts rarely seen but never forgotten. Santiago had always laughed at such tales, deeming them as fearful stories as his own. Now, beneath the vast sunlit emptiness, a sliver of boyhood awe tinged his thoughts. Hours wore on with the lazy rhythms of a life at sea. Gulls squabbled overhead, fish tugged sporadically. It was as unexceptional a day as any, but that stillness lingered, thick as fog despite the burning sun. Santiago pulled in his lines, ready to call it quits. Then he felt it, a vibration reverberating through Rosa's hull, a deep, resonant boom that seemed to come from the ocean's core. He turned, muscles tensing. Then it rose from the blue, not the sleekness of a seal or the hulking shape of a whale, but something impossibly long, impossibly powerful. The dorsal fin of a shark, larger than any he'd ever imagined. His blood ran cold. This was no curious predator. This creature was born from the whispers of nightmares. Panic threatened to cripple Santiago, but years of facing the ocean's temper hardened his resolve. He grabbed a rusted boat hook, his only pitiful weapon against this titan of the deep. The enormous shark circled the Rosa, its fins slicing the water with eerie ease. With each pass, it drew closer, a dark leviathan against the shimmering surface. Its eye, flat and black, fixed on Santiago like a predator studying its prey. Terror warred with a defiant pride. This was his sea as much as the monster's. Santiago roared, a primal challenge of an old man against an ageless force. Suddenly the shark surged, not from below, but directly at the Rosa. Wood splintered with a screech as the colossal shape rammed the boat. Santiago went tumbling, his old bones jarring painfully against the deck. The Rosa listed drunkenly, seawater sloshing in. The shark circled back, its fin cutting a trail like a menacing black sail. Its massive jaws opened, revealing rows of teeth serrated like the blades of monstrous saws. With a surge of desperate courage, Santiago lunged, driving the boat hook into the soft underside of the shark's snout. A bellow of pure rage echoed across the waterless scream of an animal, more a sound from the darkest fathoms of the earth. The shark thrashed, the Rosa lurching wildly. Santiago hung on for dear life, vision blurring, the smell of blood thick in his nostrils. Then, as suddenly as it came, the monster was gone, disappearing into the blue depths. Santiago collapsed, his breath ragged, salt mixing with tears on his bruised face. His mind went numb, unable to grapple with the enormity of his brush with death. With shaking hands, he righted the battered Rosa, engine spluttering as he limped back towards the distant blur of Puerto Caldera. Santiago's return to Puerto Caldera caused a stir like nothing before. His gashed arms, wild eyes, and the broken story of the giant shark left villagers buzzing. Many chuckled, unsure where his true story ended and the tall tale began. Santiago's body held the proof of his fight. Deep, ugly bite marks scarred his left leg. Yet a strange feeling rose in him, too, pride. Santiago Molina, known for exaggeration, now had a story too wild to deny. The shark might be as unbelievable as the fact that he survived. Doctors in the distant city patched him up, calling him a miracle and a lucky old fool. Back in Puerto Caldera, life carried on with a new undercurrent. Some fishermen started avoiding the spot where the attack happened. There was a new fear of what waited out there. Santiago found himself looked at differently. Children listened to his stories with wide eyes. Even the older, doubtful villagers looked out at the vast ocean with a new wariness. Did the encounter turn Santiago into a true believer in legends? He wasn't sure, but something in him had changed. The ocean, his lifelong friend, now held a dark edge, its depths hiding things wilder than any story he'd told. The line between what was real and what was a tale would always be unclear for the old fisherman, and maybe that was exactly how it should be. Because under the calmest waters, amazing and terrifying things can still hide.
Laura was an internationally renowned bikini model, whose breathtaking beauty and fearless attitude had taken her to some of the most remote and exotic places on the planet. But even for someone like her, there was nothing quite like the breathtaking mix of beauty and danger found in Shark Alley, a stretch of crystal-clear waters off the coast of Belize. The azure waters of the Caribbean Sea glimmered under the scorching sun, illuminating the vibrant corals and tropical fish that swam within. But beneath the surface, the true highlight of Shark Alley was something else: the sharks. The nurse sharks were a sight to behold, with their smooth gray skin and majestic presence. These creatures were known for their gentle and serene demeanor, making them a popular choice for photo shoots. Laura had swam with them previously, and she felt completely at ease with their company. The way they glided through the water with effortless grace, their inquisitive eyes following her every move, made for an unforgettable experience. As the photo shoot was going smoothly and the crew was well ahead of schedule, Laura decided to take a dip in the tranquil waters, feeling the sun's warmth on her skin. The nurse sharks gracefully circled around her, as if performing an elegant ballet, creating a serene and peaceful atmosphere. Laura felt at ease as she moved through the clear turquoise water, admiring the vibrant coral and fish beneath her. It was a moment of pure bliss, a temporary escape from the chaos of the world. She was so confident in the docile nature of the nurse sharks that she let her guard down, unaware of the ominous presence lurking just beyond her vision. The tranquility of Shark Alley was shattered in an instant. The water that was once so calm turned into a bloody red frenzy. Laura's serene swim turned into a nightmare as she felt an excruciating pain rip through her leg, like hot iron searing her flesh. When she looked down, her worst fears were realized. A bull shark had sunk its razor-sharp teeth into her skin, intent on dragging her deeper into the abyss. The predator's eyes burned with fierce hunger, its jaws clamping down tighter and tighter, as if nothing would stop it from its desired meal. The agony was beyond words, and every movement felt like a struggle against death itself. Laura's screams became choked gasps as she felt herself being dragged into the abyss of the water, her body twisting and contorting as she tried to break free from the shark's vice-like grip. She could feel the water pressure building around her, suffocating her as she struggled to breathe. The bull shark's eyes were fixated on her, its razor-sharp teeth cutting into her flesh like hot knives through butter. Laura could feel her flesh ripping apart from the attacks of this primal predator. The crystal-clear waters of Shark Alley were now transformed into a murky, bloody nightmare. The serene atmosphere was replaced with terror and chaos as Laura's struggles intensified. Her body convulsed with agony as the bull shark continued its merciless attack. Its jaws were clamped down on her leg, pulling her deeper and deeper into the abyss. Laura's vision blurred, and the sound of her own frantic breathing became muffled as the water consumed her. Every second felt like an eternity, and the shark's grip showed no signs of relenting. With her strength fading and the shark's grip tightening, Laura's heart sank. She knew it was only a matter of time before the predator would deliver the final blow. But in a last-ditch effort, she mustered up her energy and kicked out at the bull shark's sensitive snout. The impact jolted the predator, causing it to recoil momentarily. For a fleeting moment, Laura felt a glimmer of hope. The tension in the water was palpable as Laura gasped for air, her heart racing with fear. She knew that the bull shark was still lurking somewhere in the depths below, biding its time before striking again. The quiet stillness of the ocean was shattered by the sounds of her ragged breathing, the only thing standing between her and the ruthless predator. Laura braced herself for the inevitable, knowing that the next attack could be fatal. Laura desperately dragged herself through the water, her injured leg throbbing with every movement. The once calm sea around her now felt like a death trap as she sensed the shark's presence closing in on her. She could hear the creature's powerful strokes through the water, its sharp senses locked onto her scent. Laura's heart raced as she realized the futility of her efforts. The shark was coming for her, and there was nothing she could do to escape. She stopped moving and closed her eyes, steeling herself for the inevitable attack. Suddenly, a massive shadow eclipsed the sun, and Laura's eyes flew open, just in time to see the shark launch itself out of the water. Its body was a blur of sleek, muscular power, its jaws wide open to reveal a terrifying arsenal of teeth. The shark was a force of nature, beautiful in its deadly grace. The jaws of the monstrous shark were only inches away from Laura's face when a sharp object pierced through the predator's open mouth, causing it to let out a piercing screech. The spear gun had landed with a resounding thud, and with one swift motion, had claimed the life of the frenzied beast. The water was stained with blood of both predator and prey, and the lifeless body of the shark bobbed up and down in the waves, a stark contrast to its former fearsome form. Laura's body went limp, her mind unable to process what just happened. She floated in the water like a lifeless doll, her eyes staring blankly at the red-stained waves around her. Suddenly, a pair of strong hands gripped her shoulders, pulling her back to reality. It was Johnny, the cameraman, who had saved her from the jaws of death. He hoisted Laura onto the boat, her body shivering from the shock. The sound of the shot that killed the shark echoed in her ears, and she knew that she owed her life to Johnny's quick thinking. However, the memory of the terrifying incident would haunt her for the rest of her days, a reminder of the fragility of life in the wild.
The waves pounded against the shores of Lennox Head, Australia, with relentless energy. Beneath the sun-drenched surface, vibrant sea life thrived, including tiger sharks, the ever-present yet largely unseen hunters of the deep. Known for their distinct markings and indiscriminate predation, their presence lent a silent power to the otherwise mesmerizing scene. For 16-year-old Lucas Baird, this was hallowed ground. His life revolved around the ocean, from dawn patrols catching the first glimpse of sunrise to evenings spent analyzing videos of his every ride. Lucas wasn't just another teenager with a surfboard, but a rising star in the competitive surfing world. Today, though, was different. November 9, 2005 marked the Lennox Head Surf Classic, a regional competition that was his launching pad onto a more professional circuit. His mom, Rebecca, had always supported his dreams, cheering from the shore through countless heats. However, her eyes always carried a silent flicker of worry, a subtle acknowledgement of the wild stage her son played upon. Lucas and his father, James, shared a deep, wordless understanding forged over the years spent riding waves and building sandcastles. They were inseparable until a tragic surfing accident claimed James 2 years ago. Since then, the ocean became both a solace and a burning testament to the father-son bond Lucas desperately clung to. As the competition began, Lucas paddled out with fierce determination. Every successful wave ignited a fire in his soul, a whisper that he was carving his path in the way his dad would have wanted. The crowd buzzed with energy, fueling his adrenaline as he executed each maneuver with focus and precision. And then, in a heartbeat, the unthinkable happened. Mid-ride, a shadow emerged from the deep as Lucas prepared for a critical turn. A massive tiger shark, drawn by the splashing and frenzy of the competition, zeroed in on the young surfer. With terrifying speed, it breached the surface, a gaping maw filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. The initial impact sent Lucas flying. The ocean exploded into a symphony of screams and churning water in those chaotic seconds. Surfers on neighboring waves scattered, paddling frantically for shore. It was a nightmare unfolding before the eyes of hundreds, amplified by the live footage streaming to the beach. From her beachfront perch, Rebecca felt the world crack open. Fear coursed through her like a physical blow, mirroring the horror playing out just offshore. Everything dissolved into slow motion. The terrified shouts, the splash of rescue boards heading towards the chaos, her own strangled cry that seemed to echo off the horizon. He turned vicious as the powerful predator dragged Lucas below the surface. He pulled into an eternity each second as he fought, kicking wildly against the crushing weight. Water filled his lungs, a burning coldness clawing at his very life. Then, a terrifying jolt. The shark clamped down on his right arm, the sheer force of it obliterating any sense of pain. It twisted and thrashed, the ocean turning crimson, and then blinding agony. He could feel a part of him being mercilessly ripped away. In an act of survival, fueled by desperation, Lucas lashed out with his remaining arm. Whether by fate or blind luck, his fist struck the shark's sensitive eye. The predator loosened its grip suddenly, allowing Lucas to break free. He surfaced in a desperate scramble, instinct propelling him toward a lone rescuer who frantically reached for him. Then he blacked out. The last thing he registered was his mother's scream, an agonizing sound of absolute pain shattering through the noise of the rushing waves. On the beach, pandemonium reigned. Some spectators fled in terror. Others pressed toward the shoreline, faces stark with a mix of horror and helplessness. Cameras, once trained on the skilled athletes, now zoomed in on a scene ripped from a nightmare. Lucas's mangled body was hauled onto a board, blood swirling in the surf as paramedics took over. Each moment they crawled by in torturous uncertainty. He had to live. He just had to. Rebecca found herself kneeling, digging her hands into the sand as if she could physically anchor herself to the earth. In that gut-wrenching moment of absolute vulnerability, something deep within her snapped yet simultaneously hardened. Lucas wouldn't become just another horrifying statistic. Even if he were to survive, these treacherous waters and the monster that lurked within their depths would forever change their lives. The ambulance ride to the hospital was a blur. Rebecca tried to stay calm, but fear and anger fought inside her. Her whole world felt tiny. All she could hear was the beep of the machine keeping her son alive. News crews waited outside the hospital, trying to find out what happened. People were talking about Lucas and sharks. Some people said sharks were terrible and needed to be killed. Other people said that sharks are required for the ocean. Nobody could agree. But Lucas wanted to make something good out of something terrible. Doctors worked hard to fix his arm. His recovery was long and painful. Sometimes he woke up crying and scared, remembering the attack. But even though he was hurt, Lucas started to find a new way to be brave. Lucas watched the news in the hospital. People were arguing about sharks and what to do. He got angry. Sharks weren't evil monsters. They were just animals. People hurt the ocean too, but sharks get all the blame. Lucas had a hard time after the shark attack. His body and mind had to heal. But a new feeling grew inside him. He wanted to change things. He learned that scary things can still have some good in them. Lucas found his voice. He would speak for the sharks even though one nearly hurt him. He wanted people to stop being afraid and start working to help sharks and the ocean. His surfing days might have ended, but Lucas would always be brave. He would keep fighting, but in a different way. He would help save the ocean and help people understand sharks.
Since he was a child, Ryan was captivated by the mystery and wonder of the ocean. As he grew older, his fascination only deepened, especially when it came to the creatures that call the underwater world their home. He was mesmerized by their power, grace, and raw beauty, and he wanted to share their magnificence with the world. Ryan became a skilled underwater photographer, always on the lookout for that perfect shot that would capture the essence of the ocean's predators. He spent countless hours studying their behavior and movements, observing their hunting strategies, and waiting patiently for the right moment to snap a photo. He dove deep into the ocean, braving the dark and the cold, determined to capture the elusive creatures on film. That's why Ryan's heart raced with excitement when he heard about the upcoming international competition for underwater photography. He knew that this was the perfect opportunity to showcase his skills and passion for capturing the stunning beauty of the underwater world. To prepare for the competition, Ryan searched far and wide for the ideal location that would give him the edge he needed to win. His search led him to the mesmerizing waters of Tiger Beach in the Bahamas, a place that offered both breathtaking scenery and the chance to capture stunning shots of one of the ocean's most awe-inspiring predators, the tiger shark. As Ryan arrived in Tiger Beach, he was struck by the stunning beauty of the place. He spent several days getting familiar with the area, marveling at the incredible underwater world that surrounded him. The turquoise waters were crystal clear, revealing a world of wonder and mystery beneath the surface. As he dived deeper into the water, Ryan was greeted by schools of brightly colored fish that darted playfully around him. The vibrant colors of the fish stood out against the backdrop of the coral reefs, their movements hypnotic and mesmerizing. The sun's rays filtered through the water, casting a golden glow on everything in its path. The light danced on the seafloor, creating a magical, almost otherworldly ambiance that took Ryan's breath away. He felt as if he had entered another dimension, one where the laws of physics and reality were slightly altered. As Ryan lost himself in the underwater world, his senses were completely engulfed by the awe-inspiring scenes that unfolded before him. The coral reefs, in all their resplendent glory, had become the focal point of his attention, and the schools of fish that swam past him appeared to dance with an ethereal tune. However, he had become oblivious to the predator that was inching closer to him from behind. A shadowy presence, lurking just beyond his periphery, stalked him with a silent grace, biding its time until it could strike. Ryan was utterly unaware of the imminent danger that was about to befall him. As if struck by a bolt of lightning, Ryan felt an excruciating pain jolt through his body. A sharp, searing sensation ripped through his left leg, and a muffled scream of agony escaped his lips. His heart raced with terrible realization as he recognized the source of his torment. A 13-foot tiger shark had clamped down on him with a ferocity that made his bones quake. Its powerful jaws, lined with razor-sharp teeth, ripped through his flesh with a frightening force. Ryan's mind raced as he struggled to comprehend the gravity of the situation. His worst nightmare had become a reality, and he was at the mercy of a fearsome predator, with no escape in sight. As the shark clamped its jaws down on Ryan's leg, its powerful muscles thrashed about, throwing him around like a toy in a fit of fury. The water turned a deep shade of crimson as Ryan's blood seeped out, mixing with the salt water. The sharp, serrated teeth of the tiger shark tore through his skin and muscle, causing unimaginable agony that shot through every nerve ending in his body. The pain was all-consuming, knocking out any other thoughts or sensations, and Ryan was left to endure the brutal assault of the predator in a world of pain and terror. Ryan tried to kick the shark repeatedly, but his efforts were futile against the shark's incredible strength. In one sickening crunch, the shark bit off Ryan's leg completely, severing it from his body with ruthless efficiency. As Ryan's muffled screams fell on the deaf ears of the ocean, the shark prepared to strike again, stalking its prey as it circled around him. Ryan's strength was waning, and his mangled leg was drowning him in pain. The shark lunged once more, its jaws gaping wide, ready to finish the job it had started. But this time, Ryan was prepared. Instinctively, he reached for the knife on his waist and plunged it into the shark's eye with all his might. The shark recoiled in pain, thrashing wildly in the water before retreating into the depths of the ocean. But Ryan's victory was short-lived. He was almost out of breath, his vision growing dim as he fought to stay conscious. As Ryan lost all hope, he saw a local diver approach him, a glimmer of hope in an otherwise hopeless situation. The diver managed to pull Ryan towards his boat, performing first aid as he called for rescue. Despite the diver's valiant efforts, Ryan's condition was critical. He drifted in and out of consciousness during the journey towards the hospital, his fate hanging in the balance. It wasn't until 2 long, painful days later that Ryan finally woke up, his leg amputated to save his life. Though he had lost a limb, he had managed to survive the harrowing ordeal with the tiger shark, a testament to the human spirit's indomitable will to survive.
South Africa's wild coast, a starkly beautiful land where churning waves clash against rugged cliffs, has always held a whisper of danger. Rumors swirl of shadowy predators roaming the depths, and today, August 23, 2009, was a day those rumors would spring to terrifying life. Zola Dube, a renowned conservationist, was no stranger to ocean perils. Years studying South Africa's marine life, she had etched a mix of reverence and wary pragmatism on her soul. However, the allure of the Sardine Run, a magnificent natural phenomenon where massive shoals of fish transform the coast into a swirling mass of life, always proved too strong to resist. Her companion, Theo Jansen, a seasoned deep-sea diver, mirrored her excitement, though his quiet focus betrayed a more cautious nature. Their target, Protea Banks, a renowned shark sanctuary and dive spot within the vast spectacle of the Sardine Run. Here, giants like bull sharks and hammerheads patrolled alongside other predators drawn to the feast. And amidst the chaos and elusive rarity, the short-fin mako, a sleek and powerful hunter famed for its incredible bursts of speed and acrobatic leaps. Zola's pulse quickened. These mighty sharks, resembling miniature great whites with their conical snouts and brilliant blue backs, were as beautiful as they were unpredictable. Considered the fastest shark in the ocean, makos can reach speeds exceeding 40 miles per hour in short bursts, quick enough to escape the water in pursuit of prey completely. Their early morning launch cut through the chilly coastal fog, leaving the land a smudged silhouette. Theo expertly guided the inflatable boat towards the telltale signs of the run: diving birds, roiling surface water, and the spicy ocean scent growing thick with fish oil. Soon the sea exploded around them, a writhing silver mass reflecting the brightening sunlight. Zola scanned the depths, heart pounding. Fins sliced through the sardines, and she caught glimpses of bullish shark shapes. Anticipation warred with a familiar thrum of respect. They were tiny figures in this underwater battlefield. She signaled to Theo, and together they submerged into the frenzy. A sleek, muscular shape materialized out of the swirling chaos. Mako. Even amongst the other mighty sharks, it possessed an uncanny grace. Zola fumbled for her camera, awestruck, but a ripple of unease shot through her. Something about the animal's movement wasn't circling out of natural curiosity. The mako was closing in faster than she'd ever witnessed. The mako accelerated, not in a hunting lunge, but a direct, purposeful charge. Theo yelled, a strangled sound cut short by his regulator. There was no time for escape, no chance to outmaneuver the sleek torpedo of muscle and teeth hurtling towards them. Instinct took over. Zola shoved Theo sideways with all her might just as the mako struck. Not with its jaws, but its broad snout slamming into her torso like a battering ram. Zola's world erupted in a flash of blinding pain. Her ribs felt like they were shattering, and her breath exploded out of her. Disoriented, she tumbled in the roiling water, a crimson cloud billowing around her. She caught a horrifying glimpse of the mako circling back, its eyes fixed on her as if assessing its handiwork. Black spots danced in her vision, fear threatening to pull her into unconsciousness. Theo was beside her then, his eyes wide with terror, dragging her upwards. She felt the mako surge beneath them, passing within inches, its sandpaper skin and predatory eye filling her fading vision. Pain screamed through her with every labored breath. She clung to Theo, the ascent feeling endless. Above, the boat was blurred, and she wondered if they'd reach it in time. The world faded to black. She awoke choking, salt water burning her throat. Hauled over the inflatable's rim, Zola collapsed onto the hard floor, pain lancing through her. Blood soaked her wetsuit, nausea swelling in her throat. Frantic hands pressed against her chest, Theo's voice strained and panicked. Above it all, she heard the throbbing drone of a boat engine ramping up. They were racing back to shore. Her next clear memory was a jolting ambulance ride, sirens cutting through her delirium. Then hospital hallways, bright lights, and the panicked faces of her family. But a haunting question burned beneath that swirl of shock and pain. Why? Animal attacks happen, yes, but a mako's calculated strike. It defied everything she knew about their behavior. The mystery ate at her like a silent infection. Theo visited, guilt shadowing his face. He replayed the moments before the attack, searching for any missed warning signs. They found none. Zola survived with shattered ribs and a deep-seated unease. Her ordeal became a cautionary tale whispered amongst divers, a chilling reminder of the ocean's beautiful but untamable nature. Some called it an accident, a fluke. But in those few seconds, as she stared into the mako's unblinking eye, Zola felt something that shook her scientific understanding to its core. A fleeting touch of something darker and far more inscrutable.
Pedro and Owen's friendship was unbreakable, fueled by their shared thirst for adventure. Owen was beyond thrilled when Pedro asked him to visit his hometown of Guadalupe Island in Mexico for an introduction to scuba diving. With Pedro as his mentor, Owen was confident he would make the most of his diving experience, even though he had never felt the rush of being underwater before. Pedro's expertise was reassuring, and Owen felt excited to take on the challenge. Guadalupe Island was a breathtaking place, a seemingly tranquil oasis surrounded by the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. The water was so clear that it reflected the blue sky above like a mirror, revealing an underwater world full of wonder and danger. Beneath the surface, the coral reefs were a maze of colors, from bright greens to deep blues, dotted with exotic sea creatures that could take one's breath away. The currents were strong and unpredictable, and the waves crashed against the rocky shores with a thunderous force that could be heard from miles away. Owen was mesmerized by the beauty of the island, but he also felt a sense of unease in his gut, as if the ocean was warning him of the impending danger that lurked beneath the waves. Pedro, on the other hand, was filled with pride as he led his friend through the island's stunning landscapes, showing off the secrets and mysteries that only the locals knew. As the night fell on Guadalupe Island, Pedro and Owen joined the locals in a lively celebration. They drank, laughed, and listened to the island's music, feeling welcomed by their friendly community. However, as the drinks kept flowing, the locals began to share chilling stories of recent shark attacks on fishermen who dared venture too far from the shore. Owen's unease grew with each story, but Pedro seemed unfazed, assuring his friend that he knew these waters well and that sharks wouldn't be a problem. Yet the tales of terror lingered in Owen's mind, and the thought of facing these predators in the deep, dark waters of the Pacific Ocean filled him with dread. The following day, Pedro and Owen plunged into the vast ocean surrounding the island, their senses alive with the thrill of adventure. The vibrant underwater world was a feast for their eyes as they swam alongside colorful schools of fish and majestic sea turtles. The waters were so clear that they could see for miles, but the clarity also made it easier for Owen to spot something sinister lurking in the shadows. His heart racing, he saw two enormous great white sharks silently gliding towards them, their razor-sharp teeth glinting menacingly in the sunlight. Owen signaled Pedro frantically, pointing at the two great white sharks that glided with an ominous grace through the clear blue water. Pedro motioned for Owen to follow him, a confident smile on his face as he swam towards the creatures. Owen felt a chill run down his spine as he realized how close they were getting. Suddenly, the sharks seemed to sense their presence, and their behavior changed. They began to move in erratic patterns, as if agitated by the two divers invading their territory. With their heart racing and adrenaline pumping, Pedro and Owen tried to retreat as fast as they could from the agitated sharks. But it seemed like the predators had other plans in store. Suddenly, one of the sharks broke away from the group and charged towards Pedro like a missile, the force of the impact sending him spinning out of control. The sickening crack of bones echoed through the water as the shark slammed into Pedro's back, leaving him paralyzed and at the mercy of the ocean's currents. As the water swallowed him whole, Pedro's life hung in the balance. Pedro was helpless as the second shark made its move. Its mouth gaped wide open, and Owen could see the rows of jagged teeth as the shark charged towards Pedro. The shark lunged at Pedro with incredible speed, and Owen could hear the bone-crunching impact as it sunk its teeth deep into Pedro's shoulder. Blood gushed out from the wound as the first shark joined in, biting down on Pedro's leg with relentless force. The two beasts pulled in opposite directions, tearing through Pedro's flesh and bones like a pair of ferocious machines. The sound of snapping bones echoed through the water as the sharks ripped off Pedro's limbs, leaving behind a cloud of blood and dismembered body parts. Pedro's body convulsed in agony as the great white sharks mercilessly tore into his flesh. Piercing pain consumed him, and he realized his life was slipping away. He felt the cold embrace of the ocean as his body continued to freefall, the only sound the deafening roar of bubbles escaping his regulator. The water around him became a swirling vortex of red as the sharks ferociously ripped apart his body, leaving behind only scraps of torn flesh and blood-stained water. The scene of horror unfolded before Owen's eyes, and he was powerless to stop it. The two sharks were like monstrous predators, unrelenting and savage as they tore apart Pedro's body. Owen was rooted to the spot, frozen in terror at the sight of his friend's brutal demise. Eventually, he regained some semblance of control and began to swim away, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the shark's presence behind him, a dark and ominous force lurking in the depths of the ocean. Owen swam with all his might, trying to outrun the looming danger that pursued him. Owen was in shock, and he kept crying while informing the local islanders about the incident. The local authorities acted and tried to retrieve Pedro's remains, but to no avail. The only sign of the shark attacks was the crimson-tinged water surrounding the area. Owen was traumatized by the events that unfolded before him, haunted by the memory of his friend being torn apart by the sharks. He vowed never to dive again and warned others of the dangers of underestimating the power of nature's creatures.
The waters surrounding Barataria Bay, a remote cove carved into the limestone cliffs of coastal Louisiana, clung and shimmered with crystal-clear brilliance. Turquoise met emerald green, creating a spectacle unlike anything Emily and Ben Carlson had ever encountered. Under the vibrant surface, life teemed, a world as mysterious as it was captivating. Their honeymoon to this tropical paradise was meant to be a blissful escape. After an intimate beach wedding and whirlwind of celebrations, everything else now seemed a distant memory. It was June 9, 2003, a date forever etched into their lives, but not for the reasons they could have imagined. Emily, an experienced swimmer, loved exploring the ocean. Ben, more content with his toes in the sand, reluctantly agreed to a snorkeling expedition spurred by his new wife's unbridled enthusiasm. Their local guide, Chayut, a seasoned fisherman, promised them a hidden oasis teeming with colorful fish and vibrant coral reefs just beyond the cove. Bull sharks, known for their unpredictable behavior and ability to thrive in freshwater, are common in this region. Their stocky bodies are built for power and ambush, making them one of the most dangerous shark species in the world. Unknown to the newlyweds, one had wandered into the bay, silently patrolling the deeper waters. Emily and Ben plunged into the inviting water, marveling at the schools of fish that swirled around them like living confetti. Chayut kept a careful distance, giving the couple their desired privacy and adventure. However, as they drifted further from the boat, excitement gradually shifted towards a primal awareness. Beneath the serene beauty, a hidden world simmered. As the natural explorer, Emily ventured out ahead, captivated by the dance of light and the shapes shifting below. In her periphery, she caught something significant circling in the murky depths. Oblivious to the looming threat, Ben swam close by, kicking with playful delight as he admired the playful creatures at the surface. It was a scene of picture-perfect serenity, unaware of the terror poised to unfurl beneath them. Suddenly, a flash of motion erupted from below. Water swirled in chaotic bursts, displacing the tranquility that reigned moments before. As Ben turned towards the disturbance, he felt a jolt of pain like nothing he had ever known. And in an instant, time seemed to distort, reality fracturing under the force of the assault. The bull shark latched onto Ben's leg, its mighty jaws clamped in a vice-like grip. It twisted violently, tearing at his flesh with primal intent. The crystal-clear water churned red as Emily watched in horror. For a heart-stopping moment, only Ben's muffled screams penetrated the chaos. Her mind raced, paralyzed by disbelief as the scene became a brutal spectacle. Her love, mere seconds ago a carefree honeymooner, was now locked in a fight for survival against a force fueled by predatory instinct. Yet, within Emily, fear gave way to something potent. She would not surrender her husband to the depths. Mustering a strength she didn't know she possessed, Emily surged forward. She dove below the surface, a scream erupting from her throat as she swam towards Ben. Her thrashing and cries seemed to disorient the shark for a fraction of a second, buying her precious moments to get closer. Her mind fixated on a single purpose: save Ben. Chayut, jolted by her scream, rushed to the edge of the boat. Understanding washed over him like a cold wave. Shark. It could only be a shark. Fear pulsed through him, mirroring that which now consumed Emily. He grabbed a sturdy oar, preparing for the worst as he scanned the surface for any sign of what lay beneath. Emily reached Ben, the horrifying wound on his leg sending fresh shockwaves through her. His face, a mask of agony and terror, seemed to plead for something far beyond her capabilities. Yet she reached for him, desperate to break the shark's grip. She grabbed his arms, but Ben remained locked in the predator's clutches. Then an impossible sight. Chayut leaped from the boat, the oar plunging towards the shark with terrifying accuracy. In that chaotic symphony of fear and action, there was a moment of silence, broken only by Emily's scream. The creature lurched, then swerved, finally loosening its grip on Ben. Blood billowed like smoke, obscuring the scene as Emily dragged her wounded husband toward the boat. She pulled him frantically until Ben was safely within Chayut's reach. Together they hauled him on board, collapsing with relief and horror. Ben lay limp, gasping through the agony. And then there was only the frantic race back to shore, the echo of Ben's tortured rasps fueling Emily's despair. The shark, defeated for now, circled ominously below, a grim shadow beneath the turquoise tapestry of the once welcoming waters. Chayut knew the island well. He raced the boat to the nearest clinic. Emily stayed by Ben's side, trying to stop the bleeding. She wouldn't let go. Ben was in and out of it, his breath coming hard. His skin was ashen. When they finally got to a small clinic, nurses hurried to help. Doctors worked hard to save Ben's life. It was hard to tell if Ben was going to make it. Emily would not accept that. News of the shark attack spread fast. People on the island came to the clinic. They held candles and prayed for Ben. They were no longer strangers. Everyone was hoping and praying for Ben to survive. Inside the clinic, Emily held Ben's hand. She would not let the darkness win. She talked to Ben about their life together. She told him about the future they would have. He made it through the boat ride. He made it to land. She wouldn't let him stop fighting now. A doctor entered the room as the sun rose over the island. He was drained, but his eyes showed a tiny bit of hope. He told Emily how bad Ben's injuries were and explained the problematic battle her husband was fighting. It was too early to say if he would be okay, but he was alive. There was still a chance. That slight chance gave Emily a tiny bit of hope. Their honeymoon didn't go as planned, but their story remained. Ben was a fighter. She wouldn't let him die now. The fight wasn't done. Emily knew one thing for sure: no shark, no force of nature could take away their love story. It was only just beginning.
Lisa's eyes sparkled with a sense of adventure as she gazed upon the magnificent waters of the Great Barrier Reef. Her heart raced with excitement and a hint of fear, but the burning desire to tick off scuba diving in the world-famous reef from her bucket list was stronger than her nerves. She couldn't wait to take the plunge into the unknown depths below. She eagerly donned her black wetsuit, feeling the soft fabric hug her body like a second skin, ready to take on the waters. The oxygen tank felt heavy on her back, but it was a welcome weight, a symbol of the adventure she was about to embark on. As she adjusted her mask and regulator, her senses were heightened with anticipation. She felt as if she was about to enter a whole new world, a world filled with unknown creatures and unimaginable beauty. Lisa felt as though she was venturing into an uncharted universe as she sank into the depths of the ocean. Alien-like creatures surrounded her, flaunting their striking colors and unusual forms, as if they were plucked from the pages of a science fiction novel. Bright and vivid fish raced past her in flashes of neon, their scales gleaming in the sun's warm rays. In mesmerizing patterns, schools of silver fish swirled around her, as if in a trance, like a rhythmic and hypnotic dance. The beauty of the underwater world faded as Lisa's eyes fixated on a looming figure in the distance. It seemed to be emerging from the shadows of the murky depths, revealing its massive size. Her heart pounded in her chest as her breaths came in short, panicked gasps as she recognized the predator in front of her. A sense of dread washed over her as she could feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. It was a tiger shark, easily measuring over 20 feet long, and its sleek body moved through the water with a graceful yet intimidating power. Lisa's mind raced as she tried to remember the guide's instructions on how to avoid attracting sharks, but her mind went on panic. Terror gripped Lisa as she frantically kicked her legs, feeling the weight of the ocean pressing down on her. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, threatening to burst out of her rib cage as she struggled to gain some distance from the approaching creature. But her movements only seemed to incite the beast, causing it to move faster and closer towards her. Its powerful body sliced through the water, sending ripples across the surface as it moved with deadly intent. Lisa could feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand up as she realized that she was face to face with one of the ocean's most fearsome predators. Despite the guide's reassurances, Lisa could feel the weight of her fear pressing down on her chest like an anchor, dragging her deeper into the abyss of terror. Her heart pounded in her ears as she made her way towards the boat, her movements frantic and uncoordinated, like a panicked prey desperately trying to escape the predator's grasp. But her attempts to flee only seemed to draw the massive shark closer, its fins slicing through the surface of the water as it circled around her like a vulture circling its prey. The other divers froze in terror, their faces etched with horror as they watched the deadly dance between Lisa and the shark. Despite the guide's warning, Lisa's panic had already taken over. Her splashing movements had attracted the lurking predator towards her, and the shark was closing in. Its sleek gray body glided through the water with ease, its dark, lifeless eyes fixed on Lisa. Suddenly, the shark lunged at Lisa. The sound of teeth crunching through bone echoed in her ears as the massive tiger shark clamped down on her left leg. She felt the searing pain shoot through her body, and she let out a blood-curdling scream. The shark's teeth sliced through her flesh like a hot knife through butter, leaving a gaping wound that gushed blood into the ocean. Lisa felt her consciousness slipping away as the pain became too much to bear. Her vision blurred, and she struggled to stay awake, but eventually succumbed to the darkness. The guide's heart raced with adrenaline as he saw Lisa's body sinking rapidly into the abyss. With a burst of energy, he kicked his way towards her, determined to save her. But as he reached her, a sudden chill ran down his spine. From the murky depths emerged the same tiger shark, its massive jaws wide open, ready to strike again. The guide's heart pounded in his chest as he watched in horror as the shark bit off Lisa's other leg in a single swift motion. The guide's blood ran cold as he watched in horror as the massive tiger shark ripped off Lisa's limbs one after another, leaving her helpless and mutilated in its wake. He was frozen in fear, unable to process what was happening before his very eyes. The shark's powerful jaws snapped and tore at her flesh, its razor-sharp teeth sinking deep into her body, causing blood to cloud the water. As Lisa's body was being torn apart, the guide felt a sickening feeling in the pit of his stomach, knowing that he had failed to protect her. His mind raced with thoughts of what he could have done differently, but it was too late. The shark, having taken its fill, grabbed Lisa's lifeless carcass and dragged it down to the murky depths of the ocean, leaving the guide in a state of shock and disbelief. He felt helpless, his mind numb as he tried to process the tragedy that had just unfolded before him. The other tourists and members of the diving crew frantically reached out to the authorities, their voices trembling as they recounted the gruesome attack. The authorities quickly dispatched a team of search and rescue divers to scour the surrounding waters, their powerful flashlights cutting through the murky depths like blades. But as they searched and searched, the bleak reality began to set in. There was no hope in finding Lisa alive. After 2 days of searching, all that was found was Lisa's oxygen tank, with scratch and bite marks on its sides. The incident served as a haunting reminder of the unpredictable nature of apex predators and the dangers that lay hidden beneath the tranquil waters of the Great Barrier Reef.
Chantal Delint was having the time of her life. She had saved up every paycheck from her fast food job for 2 years for this trip. Since she was little, Chantal had dreamt about swimming with dolphins in the Swan River, since she saw a show on television about the place in Perth, Australia, where you could swim with the aquatic mammals. It caught her imagination as a 10-year-old girl, and now finally, after graduating high school, Chantal was here. Swan River runs from the ocean and cuts through the city of Perth, creating a stunning contrast to the city's concrete and skyscrapers. The river is salty and carries a host of saltwater fish, crustaceans, and the very bottlenose dolphins Chantal was so eager to see. She had rented a ride on the river with a dozen other tourists from various countries, but Chantal was not interested in them, nor did she take in the sights or greet the other friendly boaters waving at them as they passed each other. Her eyes were fixated on the water, looking for the majestic animals. After 2 hours, the raft they were on made a stop for a quick packed lunch, and the passengers listened intently to the captain's history of the river. But Chantal wasn't listening. She was waiting for an opportunity to arise when she could slip into the water the moment she caught sight of the long-awaited dolphins. Even though swimming in the body of water was prohibited, an announcement was made by the captain himself before the passengers boarded. Nothing could stop Chantal from jumping in once she saw what she came from Texas for. The pack frolicked through the water, merrily diving in and out. Chantal marveled at them. Her heart had never swelled any bigger with joy than this day. And to her delight, the dolphins came straight to their boat. One of the deckhands already had a bucket of dead fish and started throwing them in the water. The dolphins leapt to catch the treats. The crowd booed and awed appreciatively. Chantal slipped out from the crowd and slid into the water while everyone was fixated on the feeding pack. She had just started an easy breaststroke toward them when the captain began yelling at Chantal. She thought he was telling her off for getting into the water without his say-so, so she swam faster before anyone could stop her. But that was not at all what the captain was shouting about at all. If Chantal were not in such a hurry, she would have realized that he was frantically pointing out a dangerous predator making a beeline for her. The tiger shark had been attracted to the bait the deckhand threw into the water. The cheerful dolphins suddenly turned fearful and fled from the 14-foot beast approaching them at a breakneck speed. Chantal's heart sank when they suddenly turned in the water and sped off, unaware of the danger behind her. But the screaming and yelling from the boat was now so intense that it snapped her out of her hurry. It was too late when Chantal finally made out what was going on. Chantal did not even get a chance to turn and see the murderous gray shape that leaped out of the water and grabbed her by the middle. All Chantal knew was that one moment she was wistfully looking at the retreating dolphins, and the next, she was underwater and in absolute agony. From the boat, the tourists were horrified to see the girl being taken down in a spectacular display of spraying blood, water, and pure aquatic rage. The padding on her life jacket bought Chantal a little time. The shark had bitten through it, deep enough to puncture her organs. It reared back and struck again, not satisfied with a mouthful of plastic tainted with the promise of flesh. Its jaws closed on Chantal with full force this time, nearly severing her in half. But the animal wasn't done yet. What little sinew was still keeping the screaming girl in one piece was ripped apart when the animal thrashed its head wildly. Chantal's upper half, still hysterically yelling for help, was thrown several feet into the air and landed in front of the terrified passengers. Only a South Korean tourist had enough sense in him to reach overboard and grab the tattered remains of Chantal's life jacket and pull what was left of her onto the boat. His tear-streaked face was the last thing Chantal saw before she sank into the darkness of death. But at least Chantal got to see the bottlenose dolphins of Swan Lake that she had dreamt about for so long before she perished. The Andaman Sea glittered under the hot sun, stretching like a giant blue blanket. Tiny islands with white beaches popped up in the distance. 4 friends, Zara Ahmed, Alex Carter, Mia Lee, and Ethan Jones, were on a sailing trip to celebrate finishing college. This was their big adventure. Today, September 6, 2007, was all about smiles and sunshine. They rented a free spirit catamaran and set sail to explore. Alex loved being in charge at the helm, grinning as he steered the boat through the water. Zara stood beside him, expertly reading the maps and plotting their route while the warm breeze tousled her hair. Mia and Ethan sunbathed at the front of the boat, arguing playfully about who would find the best beach and make the best sandcastle. Their laughter echoed across the sparkling waves. Bull sharks live in these waters. These powerful predators are known for lurking in the shadows, ready to make surprise attacks. But our 4 friends weren't worried. They were too busy having fun and embracing the freedom of the open ocean. Zara had grown up loving the ocean. Her parents were marine biologists, and she spent her childhood filled with stories of underwater wonders. This love instilled in her a deep respect for the sea, an awareness of its beauty and the mysteries it held below the surface. While this ocean felt wild and unpredictable, it was also strangely familiar. There was an exhilarating thrill in returning to this untamed wilderness after so many years cloistered in classrooms and lecture halls. Alex was handsome and brave, radiating a natural confidence that hid the doubts he sometimes kept bottled up inside. Mia was bright and energetic, adding a dose of sassy skepticism to the group's plans. Ethan played the jokester role, bringing lightness to even the tensest moments, his goofy grin infectious. These 4 had been best friends since their first year at university. This trip was more than just a holiday. It was a chance to celebrate their unbreakable bond before their lives took them down separate paths. As they sailed further away from the busy beaches, the excitement rose at the prospect of finding their secret haven. Then they saw it, a little island shaped like a smile with a dazzling crescent of pristine, untouched sand, just what they wanted. Zara lowered the anchor with practiced ease, listening to the splash as it hit the water. They were momentarily breathless with anticipation, and then Alex shouted, "Race you to the shore!" The first splash of cool water brought pure joy. They had found paradise. As Zara let the waves push her gently back and forth, the rhythm of the ocean began to lull her into a carefree ease. The vast blue sea whispered secrets, a world of possibilities stretched out, alluring and intimidating. This was not just another holiday. This was the beginning of the rest of their lives. Suddenly, an ominous shadow cut through the clear water. It moved fast, silently slicing through the calm surface. Zara froze, her sense of peace vanishing in an instant. Her knowledge of marine life, sharks, flooded her mind, but indeed not so close to shore. Her shout of warning ripped through the air, but her voice only echoed, unanswered. Her breath hitched in her throat. Alex, Mia, and Ethan were too far off, still splashing playfully, blissfully unaware of the potential danger that lurked nearby. Zara watched in horror as the shark disappeared below the surface with Ethan. Red stained the once brilliant water, a silent reminder of the brutality she had just witnessed. Her mind whirled, frantic. They were in the middle of nowhere. Help was far beyond reach. Instinct kicked in. Her legs kicked powerfully, driving her toward the speck of red amidst the waves. Panic threatened to consume her, but determination surged in its place. Every second she counted. Each beat of her heart fueled her strokes, pulling her desperately closer to the fading crimson against the turquoise backdrop. As she finally reached the scene, a desperate hope flared. Just beneath the surface, she glimpsed Ethan's body. Adrenaline pulsed in her veins, pushing aside her exhaustion and terror. Zara dove down, fingers frantically clawing through the water, desperate to grab onto Ethan before he slipped further. Her mind buzzed with terror. Was he gone? Would she even be strong enough to pull him to the surface? Her fingers finally brushed against Ethan's limp form. With a burst of raw strength, she wrapped her arms around his bleeding body and propelled herself upward. It felt like moving through syrup. Every inch was a battle. Finally, their heads broke the surface with a ragged gasp. She hung there momentarily, barely treading water, trying to steady her pounding breath. She had him. Ethan was alive, for now. But before she could formulate a plan, the gray form reappeared. The sleek body quickly cut through the clear water, drawing closer to its wounded prey. Zara knew the attack wasn't over. They were sitting ducks. Help wasn't coming. Mia scrambled frantically into the small dinghy attached to the back of the damaged catamaran. With trembling hands, she fumbled for the paddles while her mind echoed with screams and horrified wails. With Ethan unconscious and bleeding, every splash brought an icy shockwave through Zara's veins. With every passing second, she was threatened to bring the horrifying predator back once more. Her lungs burned from exertion, and panic battled against a sliver of determination in Zara's mind. One thought screamed for survival: the island. In their blissful exploration, it had remained an alluring speck on the horizon. The crescent of sand looked impossibly distant, but it was their only hope. With a final effort, Zara mustered every ounce of strength and swam, pulling Ethan's dead weight through a crimson trail in the ocean. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't pretty. It was raw, desperate survival, their fragile bodies in a race against the relentless forces of the unforgiving sea. They finally reached the beach. Zara collapsed onto the sand, dragging Ethan's body away from the water. He was breathing, but barely. Relief washed over her, quickly followed by fear. There was no help around or escaping the reality. They were trapped. Mia rowed them back to Free Spirit, their once joyful vessel, and Zara climbed aboard to search for anything useful. It was then that she discovered the damage. The shark had attacked their boat too. Gashes along the underside, water gushing in. Now their only hope for escape was also slowly sinking. She found a first aid kit and desperately tried to stop Ethan's bleeding. Mia looked pale and her usual chatter disappeared. Fear hung heavy in the silence. They were in trouble. Terrible trouble. Days turned into a grueling fight for survival. Zara quickly realized their hope lay in the surrounding waters. Her childhood lessons about ocean currents and navigation clicked into focus. They fashioned a crude raft from broken branches and wreckage from their sailboat. Using salvaged pieces of clothing as a makeshift sail, they risked venturing into the treacherous waters, hoping to drift into nearby shipping lanes. After 2 harrowing days at sea, their raft almost disintegrating beneath them, a miracle appeared. A cargo ship spotted their desperate signals. Rescue felt impossible, but with renewed strength, they paddled with every ounce of energy, praying the large vessel would see them. And it did. Back on land, Zara's ordeal took on mythical status. Headlines dubbed her a hero, a survivor, and a woman who defied death. News channels clamored for interviews, but Zara felt more like a shell, her emotions raw and fragmented. In the quiet sanctuary of Mia and Ethan's shared apartment, where she took refuge upon arriving home, she allowed herself to break down. Survivor guilt washed over her as she mourned the shark's powerful grace, a creature following its instincts in a realm that humans had encroached upon. That forgotten island was forever etched in the map of her heart, a stark reminder of resilience discovered within shattered expectations. Zara Ahmed, the girl who once simply sought an ocean adventure, found her strength and her purpose, to be a champion for the misunderstood marine world and to preserve the mysterious depths that, for those few terrifying days, became both her nightmare and her salvation. Her survival and those of her friends weren't a happy ending, but the beginning of a new tale yet to be written.
The sun shone down on the pristine waters of Monterey Bay, casting a warm glow on the tranquil scene below. The gentle waves lapped against the shore, creating a soothing soundtrack to the picturesque landscape. The clear blue sky stretched out above, inviting anyone to venture out into the endless expanse of the ocean. It was a day that begged to be enjoyed, a day that whispered promises of adventure and relaxation. For Andrew, this is a perfect day to go for a swim. Andrew was a skilled swimmer and diver whose love for the ocean was insatiable. He could spend hours floating in the salty waters, basking in the warmth of the sun and reveling in the coolness of the ocean's embrace. His movements in the water were effortless as he glided through the calm and clear waters of Monterey Bay, feeling the weightlessness of his body and the freedom of his spirit. Today was no different. as he set out for a leisurely swim, taking in the beauty and serenity of the world beneath the waves. Andrew was entranced by the serene beauty of the ocean as he swam further out, lulled by the gentle rhythm of the waves. The shimmering blue water enveloped him, creating a sense of tranquility and calm. The deeper he ventured, the more the world above the surface receded into a distant memory. But just as quickly as he had been entranced, Andrew was snapped out of his reverie by a sharp, piercing pain that coursed through his body. It felt like a red-hot poker had been thrust through his thighs and was now making its way up towards his abdomen. His breaths became ragged gasps as he tried to make sense of what was happening. Andrew's mind raced as he tried to comprehend the situation he was in. He had heard stories about sharks attacking swimmers, but he never thought he would be the one to experience it. The pain was excruciating, and he knew he was in serious trouble. Looking down, he saw the unmistakable silhouette of a great white shark. Its jaws clamped tightly on his body, and he felt its teeth sinking deeper into his flesh. The shark's strength was immense, and it was trying to drag him down into the murky depths of the ocean. Andrew's survival instincts kicked in as he began to thrash and fight against the shark's grip. His muscles burned with exertion as he struggled to free himself from the predator's grasp. But the shark was relentless, determined to drag him to the bottom of the sea. Andrew's body went into shock as he felt the immense pain of the predator's bite, but his survival instincts kept him conscious. The vicious shark had mistaken him for its prey, and its razor-sharp teeth shredded through Andrew's flesh. The once calm waters were now stained with the deep red of his blood, sending a sickening feeling through his body. The massive shark refused to let go of Andrew's body, thrashing and churning through the water with a ferocity that could only be fueled by primal hunger. Andrew's screams were drowned out by the sound of the waves crashing against the shore as he fought for his life. The relentless predator's thrashing only made the wounds on Andrew's body worse. He felt as though his body was being ripped apart piece by piece. Adrenaline continued to surge through his veins, keeping him from passing out, but he knew that he couldn't hold on forever. Andrew was on the brink of losing consciousness when he felt a sudden release of pressure from his body. He gasped for air, feeling the stinging sensation of salt water seeping into his wounds. The water around him was a gruesome shade of red, a stark contrast to the serene blue it once was. The shark had released him, but Andrew knew that he was not out of danger yet. As Andrew gasped for air, trying to keep his head above water, he saw the unmistakable shape of the great white shark closing in on him once again. The predator's dorsal fin slicing through the water like a knife, creating a chilling wake behind it. Andrew's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the shark was making another attempt to attack him. Andrew's survival instincts kicked in as he lashed out at the monstrous predator with all his might. Every push and kick was fueled by his fear and determination to stay alive. The shark recoiled, surprised by the sudden attack, and retreated to the dark abyss below. Andrew's mind raced as he struggled to stay afloat, his senses on high alert for any sign of the relentless predator. Despite his fear and pain, Andrew refused to give up. He mustered all the strength he had left to try and make his way back to the shore, but his mangled thighs and abdomen screamed in agony with each movement. He knew that time was running out, and the thought of the shark lurking just below the surface sent shivers down his spine. Fortune was on Andrew's side as a band of paddleboarders caught sight of his distress and sprang to his rescue. Without hesitation, they hoisted him onto their paddleboard, determined to bring him safely back to shore. Andrew clung to the board with all his might, wincing in pain as the salty spray of the ocean stung his wounds. Finally, they reached the shore, where a group of bystanders rushed to help them pull Andrew from the board and onto the sand. Andrew was quickly whisked away to the hospital, where doctors worked tirelessly to save his life. Despite the trauma he had endured, Andrew survived the shark attack and emerged from the hospital a changed man, forever humbled by the immense power and danger of the ocean. His story served as a cautionary tale for anyone who dared to underestimate the forces of nature.
Silas Greensworth was finally out at sea. He rarely got time off from running his large tire corporation, but he had a week to spend with his sons and would take advantage of the time on his yacht at sea, just the way they liked it. The twins Malcolm and Toby were 7, and Donovan was the oldest at 12. The boys were in the custody of their mother, but even she made an effort to get the lads into every sporting event on the water. The Greensworth boys and their parents were fabulous swimmers, sailors, and rowers. Even after the divorce, they were still a seagoing family. Silas and the boys were out in the middle of the ocean, the yacht anchored far away from everyone and everything, somewhere off the coast of the Philippine Islands. The tropical waters were perfect for swimming, no matter how deep you went. And right now, the 4 of them were splashing in the deep, kitted out in life jackets and a few inflatable tubes tied to the boat to keep them from floating away. Besides themselves, there were only 3 other people on board: the captain, a chef, and a deckhand. The crew kept busy with everyday tasks while the family enjoyed a few hours in the water before dinner. Their games and splashes kept them so occupied that no one noticed the silently stalking fins that emerged from the water now and then. But the pack of 4 bull sharks, ranging in size from 12 feet to a massive 19 feet, was slowly inching closer to the commotion beside the large vessel. The predators had smelled the warm bodies miles away, and had spent the last hour tracking their scent. Their murderous advance beneath the surface went unnoticed until they were almost on top of the Greensworths. It was Donovan that first became aware of the danger. He yelled to his father when he finally spotted the slicing triangle only a few yards away. Silas was close to a small life raft with the 7-year-old twins beside him, but Donovan was several meters away, closest to the advancing pack. Donovan struck out to swim to his father to safety, but it was too late. Silas heard his oldest boy's scream get cut off as he was pulled down into the water by 2 of the enormous beasts. He did not allow the horror of what was happening before him to deter him from getting Malcolm and Toby to safety. He grabbed Toby by the scruff of his life jacket and hauled the small boy into the life raft. Toby had not even registered what was going on when he hit the deck. Malcolm did realize what was transpiring when he saw his big brother go down in the sudden splash of red from the feeding animals as they descended upon their prey. They were ripping Donovan to shreds. The preteen never stood a chance against the massive aquatic hunters. Malcolm was clambering onto his father's back, desperate to get out of the water and into the floating raft. The 2 remaining sharks, 12 and 14 feet long respectively, beelined for Silas, while the other 2 were tearing at Donovan. They hacked and tore into Silas's legs the moment they reached him. But the sudden weight of Malcolm on his back and the violent tug at his legs pushed Silas deeper into the water. Silas gripped the side of the raft with one hand and grabbed the boy with the other. And with the last of his breath and what remained of his strength, he boosted Malcolm up and over the edge. It was all he could do to at least get Malcolm out safely. And with that final push, Silas gave up any chance to get himself out. But the twins were safe. Silas knew his death was imminent as he was pulled down further into the hungry maws of the animals. In the seconds it took them to rip the father and son to pieces, the crew above had heard the commotion and rushed to the railings. They saw Silas push Malcolm into the little dinghy and hoist the craft immediately. They could not risk leaving the 2 cowering boys on the open water. There was no chance of saving Silas and Donovan. By the time Toby and Malcolm reached the deck, their brother and father were nothing more than scraps and bloodied seawater. The captain did go out into the water to look for any remains to bring back for the family. But the animals had spent hours diving in and out of the water, devouring every last sliver of flesh they could find. By the time the captain called in the appalling news, I could safely go out searching and there was nothing left. The twins were kept below deck to spare them the sight of the ongoing massacre on the water, in the care of the chef. It took them more than a day to finally reach the shoreline where their mother awaited them. Toby and Malcolm never got back in the water after that fateful day. What was left of the seafaring family was now forever landbound. The waters off Cape Recife, South Africa, teemed with life. The great white shark reigned supreme in this marine kingdom, a silent predator patrolling its underwater domain. For years, marine biologist Dr. Anya Petrov dedicated herself to the conservation of sharks, determined to unlock their secrets and change the perception of these majestic creatures. It was July 5, 2001, a day that Anya hoped would bring new insights into the great white's behavior. She and her research assistant, Michael Nyathi, were aboard the Sea Explorer, a small, weathered vessel that had seen its share of ocean adventures. They had been meticulously tracking a huge male for days, the elusive animal becoming a fixation for Anya. Michael, a local man with an unparalleled connection to the sea, provided keen observations, his gut instincts complementing Anya's scientific rigor. Great white sharks, known for their unpredictable nature, are famously elusive in this region. Their silvery bodies camouflage perfectly against the shifting sandbanks, making sightings a rarity. This added to the thrill of the chase, with every hour on the water fueling Anya's obsession. Her fascination with sharks bordered on reverence, a desire to understand these complex creatures in a way beyond textbooks and theories. Anya and Michael spent their morning analyzing data, reviewing previous recordings of tagged sharks, anything that might provide clues to the magnificent predator's next move. Michael, a man of few words, often conveyed more with his weathered hands and thoughtful gaze. Anya had come to respect this quiet form of communication. It reflected his deep reverence for the ocean and its inhabitants. Finally, just before midday, an unusual pattern emerged. They noticed an alteration in the water currents and a slight shift in temperature. The familiar rhythm of the ocean seemed to stutter as if holding its breath. Anya's heart quickened. Years of experience told her this could be their chance. Anya and Michael raced to the deck, the anticipation electrifying the air. They'd spent countless hours preparing for this moment. All equipment was double-checked and safety protocols were drilled into their minds. Yet they were both keenly aware that they were entering an unpredictable realm. With practiced movements, they lowered the cage into the water. Despite years of study, there was always a tremor of awe when Anya submerged herself beneath the waves. She slipped gracefully into the steel sanctuary, Michael anchoring the cage and relaying surface conditions, all systems transparent. She was keenly aware of the vastness surrounding her, the cage seeming small in the expanse of the open ocean. Then there was only the water and the waiting. Minutes it stretched into an eternity, broken only by the rhythmic sound of her breathing apparatus. And then it happened. A shadow slithered from the depths, smooth, powerful, undeniable. The magnificent male great white materialized before her, a prehistoric leviathan gliding effortlessly through its kingdom. He moved with predatory grace, seemingly aware of its effect on the interlopers. Its massive body was scarred, bearing the testament of past battles. Despite the steel bars separating them, the shark's dark eyes fixed on Anya with an intelligence that seemed to pierce the barrier. In that moment, the power dynamic shifted. She was no longer the predator, but rather the observed. No textbook could have prepared her for this raw encounter with nature's power. As the shark circled, Anya observed its behavior, collecting data with clinical precision. At least that was the initial intent. Her heart hammered in her chest, fear mixing with an insatiable curiosity. Her world had narrowed down to that imposing silhouette, her mortality startlingly clear in the face of this apex predator. And then, with breathtaking speed, everything changed. The shark turned, its sudden lunge causing the cage to rattle. The massive weight crashed against the steel, rocking the structure violently. Metal screeched against metal, an ominous sound slicing through the tranquility of the deep. For one heart-stopping moment, Anya feared the cage wouldn't hold. It bent inward, metal straining under the onslaught. This was no longer an observation, but an all-out attack. The shark twisted powerfully, jaws gaping as it tore at the metal bars. Anya stumbled backward in a blur of flashing teeth and seawater, barely avoiding the crushing jaws. She lost all meaning as survival instincts took over. The scientist gave way to primal fear as every ounce of her being screamed for escape. Was this how it would end? In the unforgiving embrace of the shark's domain? Anya scrambled to the far side of the cage, trying to put as much distance as possible between herself and the relentless predator. Each impact sent shockwaves through the structure, making it challenging to remain on her feet. The confined space that had offered protection now felt like a coffin, trapping her as the assault intensified. The shark fixated on a corner, its sharp teeth biting and tearing at the unforgiving steel. Each sickening crunch made Anya flinch as metal fragments flew into the cage. This was a battle of pure force against unrelenting will. Fear had turned to terror, her mind grappling with the unthinkable. Then it happened. A tooth lodged in the bars, wrenching against the metal, and for one heart-stopping moment Anya glimpsed a sliver of opportunity. Surging with unexpected adrenaline, she scrambled across the cage floor, throwing her entire weight against the weakened spot. She didn't question the futility. There was only desperate action. She pushed, shoved, and screamed an incoherent battle cry against the relentless roar of the ocean. And then, a miracle. The bar ripped free, creating a hole big enough for her to squeeze through. She lunged out, not daring to look back. Michael, seeing her escape, frantically hauled the cage upwards. Anya clung to the remaining bars with all her might as the cage rose, her bloody body scraping through the narrow opening. In a heart-pounding race against the shark, they reached the boat's safety in time. The great white circled below, a chilling reminder of how close she had come to death. As Michael frantically applied emergency aid, the severity of her injuries became apparent. She had deep lacerations on her arms and legs, remnants of the cage grating against her skin. The pain felt distant in the chaos, a cruel irony given the terrifying reality of the moments before. Still numb with shock, the full brunt of the incident started to settle heavily in her heart. Her lifelong passion had brought her face to face with death, its chilling breath still swirling around her. Had she pushed too far, blinded by her ambition? Yet even as the questions swirled, there was a strange flicker of gratitude. That primal fear, the vulnerability exposed, had reawakened raw respect for the wild world she fiercely defended. She knew that despite the wounds, both physical and psychological, she would heal. But her relationship with the sea and the creatures that lived beneath its surface would forever be marked by this ordeal.
Evan, a seasoned surfer with 47 years of wave riding under his belt, calls the beautiful Hawaiian Islands his home. The sparkling turquoise waters of Kiwalo, a picturesque surf spot, beckoned him to the sea. He knows this spot well, like an old friend, and feels comfortable navigating the waves that can be both gentle and fierce. The waters of Kiwalo are truly breathtaking, with their crystal-clear depths and warm, inviting temperatures. They are known to be some of the best in Hawaii, a surfer's paradise, with reliable waves that consistently break on a shallow reef. This shallow reef creates a unique surfing experience, with waves that break evenly and peel perfectly along the shore, providing the perfect canvas for a skilled surfer to carve and glide with grace and ease. One fateful day after catching a few good rides, Evan decided to take a break and rest on his board. He lay on his stomach, letting his legs dangle into the water below. The sea was calm and tranquil, and Evan was content to simply soak in the beauty of the ocean that surrounded him. But suddenly, he felt the sharp and intense pressure on his right leg, as if something had taken a hold of it with tremendous force. At first, he thought it might have been a stray piece of seaweed or wayward rock, but the pain quickly intensified, and he knew something was wrong. He looked down and saw a large, dark shape moving quickly beneath him, its jaws clamped tightly around his leg. In that moment, Evan realized he had encountered a tiger shark. He could feel the raw power of the creature as it thrashed about, dragging him and his board through the water. Fear and adrenaline coursed through his veins as he struggled to stay afloat and keep his wits about him. As Evan struggled to stay afloat and fend off the powerful shark that had latched onto his leg, his mind raced with fear and uncertainty. But even in the midst of this terrifying ordeal, Evan was surprised to find himself instinctively turning to prayer. His thoughts turned to a higher power, and he began to silently ask for help and guidance. But this was not a prayer of supplication or pleading for his life. Evan was a seasoned surfer and had faced many challenges in his life, and he felt a fierce determination rise within him. Instead of asking for mercy, he prayed for strength and courage to fight back against the shark. Evan's body surged with adrenaline as he continued to battle the shark with all his might. He punched and thrashed against the creature, each blow fueled by a primal instinct to survive. His fellow surfers heard his shouts and swearing and paddled towards him, but the struggle persisted. The shark was relentless, refusing to let go of Evan's leg, even as he punched and kicked with all his might. As the battle raged on, Evan felt a sudden jerk and was pulled beneath the waves. He was dragged into the deep, murky water, the weight of the ocean pressing down on him. But even as he was swallowed by the darkness, Evan refused to give up. He kept fighting, his adrenaline surging and drowning out the excruciating pain in his mangled leg. Desperate to survive, Evan mustered all his strength and wrapped his arms around the massive shark, squeezing it in a bear hug. His heart pounding with fear and adrenaline, he reached for the shark's gills, his fingers digging into the soft flesh. With every punch and claw, Evan felt the shark's body convulse with pain. He could hear the creature's labored breaths, its thrashing becoming more and more erratic. And then suddenly, he felt the shark's jaws loosen its grip on his leg. Evan didn't waste a second. With a surge of energy, he pushed away from the shark and kicked towards the surface, his lungs burning for air. As he emerged from the water, gasping and coughing, he looked down and saw the massive creature disappearing into the depths below. Evan's friends sprang into action, their hearts heavy with concern, as they saw him struggling in the water. They paddled towards him as fast as they could, and with practiced ease lifted him onto one of their longboards. As they made their way back to shore, they worked frantically to staunch the bleeding from Evan's leg. Some of them used their board leashes to create a makeshift tourniquet, their hands slick with Evan's blood. Through it all, Evan remained conscious, his mind racing with a mix of pain, fear, and determination. At one point, he mustered the strength to look down at his leg and was shocked to see only bone where his ankle and foot used to be. Despite the agony, Evan knew that he had to keep fighting. He gritted his teeth as the doctors rushed him into surgery, his body racked with pain as they amputated his right foot. But through it all, Evan never lost his spirit. He was a survivor, and he knew that he had been given a second chance at life.
Coral Bay, Australia was at its peak for the holiday season. The sands and waters were full of beachgoers and snorkelers. Coolers were open and spirits were jolly. But Jack Musgrave and his aging father David weren't here to chime in on the festivities. For the past 20 years, ever since Jack graduated high school, the two went out to spearfish in the area once a month. It was a skill David taught his son from an early age. When Jack became a man, they continued the tradition, not out of necessity but for companionship, and to take a moment between the rat race of life to catch up. Jack's daughters would spend a Saturday baking with their grandmother while their father and grandfather went fishing. That night they would all reconvene, the Musgrave men bringing home a fish dinner, and the girls would have a cake or pie prepared for dessert. It was a time of the month that they all looked forward to and deeply valued. David drove a little farther out than usual to avoid the busy beachgoers. Though the spot they had chosen wasn't empty of people, it was significantly quieter here on the outskirts. The men dressed in wetsuits and spears in hand walked into the water. For the first hour or two, they were more intent on relaying the past month's events than seriously looking for specks of living silver beneath the clear water. But when David snagged the day's first catch, the hunt took on a more serious tone. Jack and David drifted apart, each chest deep in the surf, scanning the shallows intently. Jack quickly caught up to his father's tally by spearing 2 large fish in quick succession, so David decided that the pocket Jack had chosen was more fruitful. He went to join his son, but he stopped short when his path was interrupted by an impossibly large shape. This thing did not give off the silvery sparkle that the fish did. The dull gray beast was a 15-foot great white. Even in shock, David knew it did not belong here in the shallow water. And he was right. Hunger and desperation had brought it in from the deep ocean. The wounds of the 3 fish they speared attracted the predator to their location. It was starving, desperate, and already had its fins pulled back, ready to strike at Jack. David managed a warning shout at his son, and David turned just in time to see the gray form lunging at him. The shallow water did not allow the shark to utilize its full speed. This, coupled with David's warning, was just enough that Jack could launch himself sideways out of the gunning beast's path. The shark still managed to glance at Jack's right leg. Its teeth sheared through the wetsuit's fabric and tore at the skin beneath. David darted forward with surprising speed for a man of 64, ready to fight to the death if he had to protect his boy. The shark made a sharp turn and returned for the elusive prey, ready to strike again. But David let his spear fly when the animal reared out of the water, mouth agape and about to smash down on Jack's torso that had just re-emerged. The older man's aim was true. The point of the spear landed in its soft underbelly, spraying the air with blood before it landed back in the water. David no longer had a weapon, but Jack had regained his footing since he could not stand on his injured right leg. Jack did, however, still have his spear, and this time when the beast, now blind with pain and hunger, desperately torpedoed out of the water, Jack was ready. The massive head came out like a cannon, heading for Jack head-on, and Jack pulled back and let his missile shoot through the air. It sailed through the jagged teeth and straight down the shark's gullet. It was slicing through the hard roof of its mouth and into the soft brain tissue behind. It hit the water, thrashing in panic and spasms just 5 feet before Jack. The water was alive with fin, tail, and foam from its wild attempts to dislodge the metallic rod. The shark was no longer focused on the target that had looked so delectable only moments before. It now only knew of the agony the metallic missiles in its body were causing it. Then David was suddenly there. He grabbed his disabled and bleeding son under the armpit and hauled him toward the nearest outcrop of rock. Neither dared take the time to look back. If they were going to have any chance of escape, it would be while the beast was still focused on its injuries. It took them only seconds to reach safety, David again displaying enormous strength for a man his age. He picked Jack up and hauled him onto the sharp rock before jumping out of the water. Only when they were safely on the rock did they see the damage to Jack's leg. Deep gashes streaked his leg from knee to calf. The wetsuit's rigid material kept the exposed muscle in place and also stemmed the bleeding somewhat. A pair of teenagers had walked past just as the commotion in the water had started, and they were already on the rock to aid the 2 older men. The boys carried Jack to the sand and called the Coast Guard for help. Jack raised a shaking hand to return his father's attention to the water. The great white shark was floating lifelessly on the surface, the shiny end of the spear in its belly glinting in the sun. Later that evening, from his hospital bed, Jack woke up from surgery to his daughter's and mother's apple pie waiting on his dinner tray and news that he would be fine. The leg would suffer permanent muscle damage, but Jack didn't mind the thought of walking with a limp, considering what could have transpired. The Coast Guard stopped in Jack's room the next day too. According to them, both spears would have killed the animal. David's spear had punctured its lungs, and Jack's spear had struck it right through the skull. Both men could claim the honor of killing the king of the ocean, but they were perfectly content to eat the delicious apple pie instead.
3 professors were selected in California in 1923 to conduct research that involved exploring the length of the Pacific Ocean to a stipulated point. They were Hayden Oz, Russell Fry, and 30-year-old Angela Merkel, the only female and the youngest professor among them. They were to spend 5 days on the ocean exploring before returning and tendering their findings. The next day, the trio met at the port in Los Angeles and boarded the provided yacht with an assigned sailor named Ed. He was also a maritime scientist, but not yet a professor, so he could also provide a helping hand. Some hours into the journey, Hayden went onto the deck overlooking the vast water as the yacht glided gracefully, leaving out ripples. There he lit his pipe and began smoking. Minutes after, Russell went out to meet him with 2 bottles of gin. They called on Angela, but she turned down the offer. She went to the deck and looked into the clear sky. The sun radiated brilliantly in the vast clear blue sky while white fluffy clouds lazily drifted along its expanse. She was assured that the ride would be memorable if the 2 drinkers could control themselves. Some hours later, Angela entered her cabin after dinner, hoping to continue her little astronomy the next day. However, the weather took a drastic turn the following day, From early morning, it rained heavily, and the downpour intensifying as the night approached. Eventually, the terrifying storm struck the yacht, unleashing its fury. The professors were in their cabins when the storm happened, while the sailor left the steering to answer the call of nature. As the waves crashed against the yacht, Ed couldn't run toward the helm as everyone had lost balance. Everyone was awakened because of these loud noises, and Angela sighted icy water pouring through the side of her cabin. The boat capsized, and everyone was thrown upside down. During this keeling over, Russell's calf got slit by something metal, and blood started gushing out. But no one minded that, including the victim. They quickly jumped into the water while Ed pumped up an 8-foot-long dinghy, and the panicked crew climbed onto it. Hayden could have powered the dinghy, but the darkness deprived them of the opportunity of using their handheld compass. They waited fearfully for dawn, so they could sail back to safety. Immediately as the sky gave way to dawn's clear light, the dinghy was forcefully nudged forward, making everyone on board shake. Angela noticed that the dinghy was pushed by nothing other than a shark, and 3 huge sharks even surrounded them. Terrified, she screamed to alert the others of her discovery. With the sky clear and the shark knowing their prey, they ran toward them full force. Hayden wouldn't have time to check the compass to see whether the route was correct. He simply started the engine and propelled forward. Blood oozing from Russell's leg was a clear trail for the sharks, who relentlessly pursued their prey. With determination, they closed in and launched another attack upon catching up. After several hours of sailing on the endless waters, the engine's fuel ran out, and it stopped. One of the sharks running after the dinghy rammed into it, knocking it over. The sharks immediately went for Russell, who was inviting them with his wound, and they devoured him among themselves. His excruciating scream was only heard once, as the predator didn't give him a second chance. His screams were abruptly silenced as the jaws of a shark clamped tightly around him, tearing his head from his body. This incident sent shivers through Angela's body, and she went dazed into the water not until Hayden shook her and pulled her onto the reset dinghy. By the time all these struggles ended, it was very dark. The remaining crew members were overcome with exhaustion, dehydration, and an overwhelming sense of fear. With an uncertainty of what awaited them the following day, their emotions ran high, and a sense of trepidation gripped their hearts. By the 3rd day, the conditions of the survivors worsened. They seemed to have been on the wrong side of the ocean as no vessel was sighted. As hunger and thirst intensified, Hayden's desperation grew. In a moment of desperation, he decided to drink the seawater, hoping to alleviate his torment. As he bent down toward the water, he slipped and fell into it. It was as if a shark was lurking somewhere because it had clamped its teeth into his thigh within a bat of an eyelid. Although Ed and Angela watched the attack, they lost the energy to protect their compatriot. Hayden was so exhausted, but with fear of the same fate as Russell, a surge of adrenaline made him gather his energy into his arm and punch the shark in its gill. After that, he dug his hand into the gill and pulled at it with all his might. The shark released his prey and then went back into the abyss. The journey back to the dinghy wasn't easy, but Hayden still managed to go on, fearing his blood might attract many other sharks. Fortunately, a Monaco-bound cargo ship was spotted on the horizon. Ed and Angela waved frantically. Angela had to remove her red scarf and use it as a flag before they were sighted. Their desperation turned to joy when they were thrown life rings, and they swam toward them. The cargo vessel had to wait a few minutes before Hayden could catch up, and he was also rescued. A nurse on the ship administered to him before being transported to a hospital in Monaco. He could never forget the incident quickly, as over 50 bites were found on his thigh. The doctors worked tirelessly stitching the wounds. The U.S. government dispatched helicopters to the shark-infested area to locate the predators that had consumed Russell. However, the helicopters couldn't locate the specific sharks involved in the incident. After some weeks, the survivors returned to California, hoping to continue working. All of them were given a break from work to heal from the tragedy. Angela spent 15 months in therapy before recovering from the trauma of the incident. At the same time, Hayden went through a tough rehabilitation process to regain the use of his right leg. After all the tough months, they returned to work with a renewed hope of living through the gory incident. For months, Tina had been consumed with the anticipation of this surfing competition. She had committed herself to training relentlessly, pushing her body to exhaustion, just to be prepared for the challenge ahead on the North Shore. Standing on the beach, she surveyed the mighty expanse of the ocean before her, taking deep breaths to steady her nerves. The water was like a shimmering siren, beckoning her to come and test her mettle against its towering, ferocious waves. Tina felt her heart pounding with fear and excitement, knowing that the next few hours would be the ultimate test of her surfing prowess. Tina's heart was a drumbeat of excitement as she waded into the ocean, the exhilaration of the moment making her feel alive. She took a deep breath, feeling the salty tang of the sea air filling her lungs, and set her sights on the horizon. The first few waves were a warm-up, and Tina expertly rode them with ease, her confidence growing with each passing moment. She felt invincible, at one with the water, and was determined to tackle the most challenging wave of the day. As she positioned herself on the crest of a particularly massive wave, Tina's eyes widened in awe at the sheer power and majesty of the ocean. She dug her toes into the board, hunkering down in a low crouch, and prepared to launch into the ride of her life. But just as she started to surge forward, a dark shape caught her eye, lurking beneath the water's surface. Tina's pulse pounded in her ears as she caught sight of the shadowy figure lurking beneath the waves. A sense of dread washed over her as she realized the danger that she was in. The creature's powerful form was unmistakable: a tiger shark, the ocean's apex predator. The shark's size alone was daunting, easily twice the length of her surfboard. Her body tensed as she tried to process the situation, but her mind raced with thoughts of escape. The slightest twitch could trigger the shark's instincts and lead to a fatal encounter. She forced herself to remain focused on the task, maintaining a calm facade as she navigated the turbulent waters. She couldn't let the shark sense her fear, but the danger was ever present, lurking just beneath the surface. Suddenly, Tina's darkest fears became a reality when the shark noticed her movement in the water. The shark launched its attack, catching her completely off guard. The force of the collision made her feel like a rag doll, powerless against the predator's sheer strength. Her body convulsed as the shark's powerful jaws sank deep into her leg, biting down with a force that made her bones feel like they were about to shatter. She gasped for air as the pain jolted through her body, feeling like 1,000 needles piercing her skin. The water around her turned red with blood, and she could feel the warmth of it as it mixed with the cool seawater. Her screams echoed through the ocean, but she knew it was useless. No one was close enough to hear her desperate pleas for help. She thrashed and kicked, trying to shake the shark off her leg, but it was useless. The creature has her in its grip and is determined to take her down. Tina's heart raced with terror as she struggled to fend off the ferocious beast. She could feel its jaws clamped tightly around her leg, crushing bone and tearing muscle with every shake of its massive head. Desperately, she swung her fist and thrashed her legs, hoping to land a blow that would make the creature loosen its grip. But the tiger shark was a formidable opponent, its body a sleek, muscular machine honed by millions of years of evolution to hunt and kill. Tina felt her lungs burning as she was dragged deeper and deeper into the inky depths, the cold water stealing her warmth and breath. Her mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, and her body screamed with pain, but she refused to give up. She had to keep fighting and stay alive, no matter what. Tina's vision was clouding over as the darkness threatened to consume her. She was certain that this was the end, that she would be swallowed whole by the predator lurking in the depths. But just as her consciousness was slipping away, a flicker of light caught her eye. A distant figure was racing towards her, his boat carving through the waves like a knife through butter. Tina's heart surged with hope as she saw the fisherman, his face set in determination, charging towards her. She lifted her arms towards him with the last ounce of her strength, praying that he would see her. And he did. He was upon her in moments, and with a swift stroke of his oar, he hit the shark on the nose. The creature released its grip on Tina's leg and disappeared back into the murky depths, confused and disoriented. Tina gasped for breath as the fisherman lifted her onto his boat, her body shaking with fear and relief. Tina spent the next few weeks recovering in the hospital, surrounded by friends and family who were grateful that she had survived the shark attack. As she lay in bed, she reflected on the terror of the experience and the realization that life can be unpredictable and fragile. But she also felt a sense of strength and resilience, knowing she had faced one of her worst fears and come out alive. It was a chilly December in 1952, but the biting wind didn't deter William and Brooke from seeking refuge in the tranquil waters of Lovers Point in Pacific Grove, California. The pair had been best friends for years and found comfort in each other's company as they braved the elements. On the chilly winter afternoon at 2 o'clock, William and Brooke bravely plunged into the frigid waters of Lovers Point, California. The air was crisp and the waves were choppy, but the two friends were determined to make the most of their daring swim. They frolicked and laughed, splashing each other with water and enjoying the thrill of the icy waves. Despite the biting cold, their excitement kept them warm as they swam further into the bay. As they ventured deeper into the sea, the water became murky and almost opaque, and they could barely see anything beyond the distance of 8 feet. Nevertheless, they pushed forward, their carefree spirits leading the way. Suddenly, in the heat of the moment, William swam too far away from Brooke, who struggled to keep up with his friend's pace. Brooke's heart pounded with fear as he called out to William, his voice lost in the waves and the wind. He desperately tried to orient himself and locate his friend, but the vast expanse of the water made it difficult to see anything. As Brooke paddled through the water, he strained to hear over the crushing waves. Then, amidst the roar of the ocean, he heard it. William's voice rang out in a desperate cry. Brooke's heart raced as he pushed his body to swim faster, his arms slicing through the icy waters. Finally, he saw his friend thrashing in the water as a monstrous creature attacked him. The great white shark was a behemoth, spanning 16 feet from snout to tail. Brooke felt a chill run down his spine as he watched the creature's massive jaws clamp down on William's leg, ripping through flesh and sinew easily. The water turned red with blood as William screamed in agony, his body tossed back and forth like a rag doll in the beast's jaws. Without a moment of hesitation, Brooke surged forward. He knew he was risking his own life, but he couldn't leave his friend to die alone. His heart pounding, he swam closer to the shark, every stroke bringing him closer to the terrifying creature. In the chaos that ensued, the ocean became a frenzy of violent splashing and thrashing, with William's helpless form caught in the jaws of the giant predator. The water around him turned a deep crimson red as the shark's razor-sharp teeth tore into his flesh. Brooke watched in horror as his best friend was lifted several feet into the air, helpless and at the mercy of the monstrous creature. Despite the danger, Brooke summoned his courage and swam toward the attack scene. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he drew closer, and his stomach churned as he realized the severity of William's wounds. With a hunting knife, he began to gouge the shark's eyes, hoping to free his friend from the predator's grasp. But the shark was relentless. Its powerful jaws clamped tightly around William's leg. Brooke's attacks only made the shark angrier, and the serrated teeth continued sinking deeper into the flesh of its helpless victim. William's screams of agony echoed through the water, growing weaker as his strength began to wane. Still, Brooke refused to give up. He knew that he had to keep fighting, that he couldn't let his friend die in the jaws of this monster. With renewed determination, he began to stab and gouge at the shark's eyes with all his might. And finally, after what felt like an eternity, the shark recoiled in pain and retreated back into the depths of the ocean. In the aftermath of the brutal attack, William's body was a dreadful sight. His leg hung limply, barely attached by a few strips of skin. Multiple lacerations and bite marks marred his body, some bleeding profusely. Luckily, 4 courageous swimmers came to his rescue, pulling him onto an inner tube and fighting against the waves that crashed against them. But as they struggled towards the shore, the shark circled them, its beady eyes fixed on its prey. It seemed that the predator was waiting for the perfect moment to strike again, to finish what it had started. The journey to safety felt like an eternity, with the shark constantly lurking in the shadows, waiting for its chance to pounce. Finally, they reached the shore and laid William down, but it was too late. The damage had been done, and the reality set in that he had not survived the attack. As they examined the gruesome injuries that covered his body, they could only imagine the unbearable pain he must have felt. The shark had bitten him at least 4 times, leaving a trail of carnage in its wake. William's right leg was almost completely severed, and the femoral artery had been cut. His left thigh, torso, and back were gashed, and a large chunk had been ripped from his right buttocks. The sheer brutality of the attack was undeniable, and it would go down as one of the most vicious attacks in the area's history. Scores of beachgoers had witnessed the horror unfold, and the memory of the brutal attack would stay with them for years to come. The beach that was once a place of joy and relaxation now held a grim reminder of the dangers lurking in the ocean's depths. The sun was high in the sky, casting its warm rays upon the glistening sands of Manhattan Beach in California. The beach was a bustling hub of activity, with people of all ages strolling along the shoreline, their bare feet sinking into the soft grains of sand. The smell of salty air mingled with the sweet aroma of sunscreen as sunbathers basked in the morning glow. In the distance, the waves crashing against the shore were punctuated by the cries of seagulls wheeling overhead. And beyond that, out on the water, several fishing boats bobbed up and down on the gentle swells, their hulls glinting in the sun. Fishermen cast their lines into the sparkling depths, hoping to reel in a catch of the day. Amongst the sun-kissed beachgoers was Stephanie, a seasoned swimmer, passionate about testing her endurance in California's coastline's cool, refreshing waters. Her muscles flexed with each fluid motion as she cut through the waves with powerful strokes, propelling her forward with grace and determination. But as she glided along the shoreline, Stephanie's keen eye caught sight of a fishing boat in the distance, and upon closer inspection, she saw that one of the fishermen aboard was in a fierce struggle with a massive fish, its wriggling form causing the boat to rock back and forth on the water. Despite her curiosity, Stephanie continued her laps, her powerful strokes propelling her past the boat and its struggling occupant. Her mind focused solely on her training. She paid no heed to the commotion on the water, intent on pushing her limits and reaching her goals. Stephanie's body rippled with exertion as she slashed through the cool, crystalline waters, her mind fully absorbed in the rhythm of her strokes. As she made another turn, she caught a glimpse of the fishing boat again, just in time to witness a taut fishing line snap. As the line recoiled, Stephanie's gaze was drawn towards the end, where a great white shark writhed and twisted in the water, its body heaving with the effort of its struggle. Fear and adrenaline coursed through Stephanie's veins as she realized the danger beyond her. The shark, agitated and angry, and now free in the water, no telling where its razor-sharp teeth would strike next. Stephanie's arms and legs pumped furiously as she strove to put as much distance as possible between herself and the terrifying great white. But just as she began to think that she had made it to safety, a searing pain erupted across her torso, causing her to cry out in agony. Her head whipped around. She saw the source of the pain, and her heart sank in horror. The agitated shark had attacked, its jaws clamping down hard on her side, its razor-sharp teeth digging deep into her flesh. Stephanie could feel the crushing pressure of its bite and hear the thrashing of its powerful tail as it tried to drag her under. Stephanie's world was a whirlwind of agony and chaos as the great white's teeth tore into her flesh, each bite sending searing waves of pain through her body. The beast thrashed and writhed in the water, its movements erratic and agitated, as if driven to a frenzy by some primal urge. Stephanie felt herself slipping into a state of panic, her thoughts racing as she struggled to escape this nightmare. But just as she thought all was lost, a sudden surge of adrenaline flooded her system, and she snapped back into the moment. With a fierce cry, she unleashed a flurry of punches and slaps with one of her free hands, striking out at the shark with all her might. But the creature was relentless, its jaws clamping down harder and harder on her side with each passing second, its eyes gleaming with a pang of savage hunger. With her body racked with pain and her strength rapidly dwindling, Stephanie felt a surge of desperation inside her. With no other options left, she reached out and grasped the great white's nose, clinging tight with all her might. The creature seemed taken aback momentarily, as if surprised by the unexpected turn of events. Seizing her chance, Stephanie used the shark's nose as leverage, summoning every ounce of her remaining strength to pry its jaws open. The beast thrashed and writhed, its massive body lashing back and forth in the water, but Stephanie held on tight, her grip unyielding. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The shark released its grip on her side and disappeared into the sea's murky depths, leaving Stephanie gasping for air and trembling with a mixture of relief and shock. Even as the shark disappeared into the murky depths, Stephanie was left writhing in agony, her body a mass of torn flesh and blood. She screamed for help, her voice ragged and hoarse, hoping against all hope that someone would hear her desperate cries. And then, like an answer to her prayers, a group of swimmers appeared on the scene, their strong arms reaching out to help her. They guided her to the shore, supporting her as she stumbled and fell, her body weakened by the trauma of the attack. With these strangers' help, Stephanie could hold on until the ambulance arrived, rushing her to the hospital before it was too late. The journey was a blur of pain and fear, a siren ringing in her ears like a terrible omen. In the end, Stephanie was left with emotional scars that would take years to heal, reminders of the brutal attack that had nearly claimed her life.
In the coastal waters of Emerald Beach Cove, South Africa, a spine-chilling tale unfolded that would reverberate through the global surfing community and send shivers down the spines of ocean enthusiasts. This is the story of a 29-year-old Norwegian surfer and a relentless bull shark, an encounter that would leave an indelible mark on the surfer and the ocean's reputation. Meet Lars Andersen, a 29-year-old Norwegian adventurer and avid surfer. Lars had traveled worldwide to quench his thirst for the perfect wave, chasing the exhilarating highs of surfing in renowned locations. His latest destination was the famed Emerald Beach Cove, a haven for surfers seeking the thrill of riding pristine waves amidst the backdrop of stunning South African scenery. Lars was an experienced surfer, his love for the ocean embedded deep within his soul. As he stood on the golden sands of Emerald Beach Cove, overlooking the majestic waves, he felt a surge of excitement mixed with respect for the mighty sea. The azure waters stretched before him, inviting and mesmerizing, promising an unforgettable surfing experience. On August 13, 1998, under the embrace of the African sun, Lars paddled out into the vast ocean, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He joined a group of fellow surfers. Their camaraderie and shared passion for the waves formed an unspoken bond between them. Emerald Beach Cove was known for its powerful waves and pristine conditions, a surfer's paradise that beckoned to those seeking the ultimate ride. The sun was high, the waves were inviting, and the air was alive with the symphony of crashing waves, a perfect setting for an epic surfing adventure. As Lars and the group ventured farther into the ocean, The waves grew in intensity and size. The adrenaline-fueled excitement of catching the perfect wave carried them further from the shore, into deeper waters. Unbeknownst to them, these waters were known to be frequented by bull sharks, powerful predators with an insatiable appetite and a fearsome reputation. Bull sharks, known for their territorial nature and ability to thrive in salt and fresh water, were a force to be reckoned with in these South African waters. Their presence was a reminder that danger could lurk just below the surface, even in paradise. As Lars paddled further into the ocean, he caught a magnificent wave, the thrill of the ride exhilarating. The waves were a playground, and for a fleeting moment he was lost in the joy of the surf. However, unbeknownst to him, the menacing presence of a bull shark lingered in the depths, its cold, calculating eyes fixed on the surfer above. In the coming moments, the azure ocean would transform into a battleground. The relentless bull shark, drawn by the commotion and mistaking Lars for potential prey, would launch a fearsome attack, thrusting Lars into a life-altering encounter with the primal forces of the sea. An unexpected ruthlessness erupted from the depths as Lars continued to ride the wave. The bull shark surged upward, its massive form slicing through the water with deadly intent. The tranquil paradise instantly transformed into a realm of primal battle. The shark's razor-sharp teeth sank into Lars's leg, the force of the attack pulling him under the water. Pain seared through his body as the predator thrashed, its vice-like grip clamping down. The world around him dissolved into a chaotic dance of bubbles, blood, and fear. Lars fought with every ounce of strength, striking at the shark's eyes and snout desperately for freedom. Adrenaline surged through his veins, his mind racing to comprehend the dire situation he found himself in. Lars's survival instincts roared to life, guiding his actions as he fought to break free from the jaws of the bull shark. He mustered a reservoir of courage and resilience, fueled by the sheer will to live. Determined, Lars landed a decisive blow to the shark's sensitive snout. The predator hesitated, releasing its grip momentarily. It was a fleeting opportunity, and Lars seized it. He propelled himself towards the surface, his muscles screaming in agony, fighting the pain and panic that threatened to overwhelm him. The surface seemed impossibly far away, but Lars pushed forward, driven by a primal urge for survival. The world above shimmered, tantalizingly close yet agonizingly distant. Miraculously, Lars breached the surface, gasping for air. The boat crew, alerted by the commotion, rushed to his aid, pulling him from the water. Blood streamed from his leg, a visceral reminder of the brutal encounter. The boat sped towards the shore, the crew working frantically to stabilize Lars and staunch the bleeding. The pain was excruciating, but Lars remained conscious, his eyes reflecting a blend of shock, fear, and relief that he had survived the harrowing attack. Lars would face a long road to recovery, both physically and emotionally. The encounter with the bull shark had left him forever changed, and the scars were a permanent reminder of the forces that reside beneath the ocean's surface. As he grappled with the trauma, he would find the strength to turn this ordeal into a story of resilience, survival, and a profound respect for the ocean's unpredictable nature. In the aftermath of the brutal bull shark attack, Lars was rushed to a nearby hospital, where a team of skilled surgeons fought to save his leg. The shark's ferocious bite had caused significant damage, necessitating intricate surgeries and long hours in the operating room. Despite their best efforts, the injuries were severe, and Lars faced the heart-wrenching reality of losing his leg. As he woke up from surgery, the weight of his new reality pressed down on him. He had joined the ranks of amputees, and the path to recovery would be arduous. The physical therapy sessions were grueling, pushing his body to adapt and relearn movements with a prosthetic limb. But determined and resilient, Lars faced the challenges head-on, embracing the rehabilitation process with resolute determination. The bull shark attack had been a defining moment, altering the course of Lars's life. It was a stark reminder of the delicate balance between man and nature, a lesson etched in scars both seen and unseen. Lars's courage inspired others, both within and outside the amputee community, showcasing the strength that could be found in the face of adversity. He became a beacon of hope, demonstrating that life could continue and flourish after enduring the most trying circumstances. The attack also sparked conversations about shark-human interactions, and the importance of understanding these apex predators. Experts emphasize the need for coexistence and the role of education in dispelling misconceptions about sharks. With all its beauty and power, the ocean demanded respect and knowledge from those who sought its embrace. Lars's story echoed through the coastal breeze, a reminder that even in the face of nature's fiercest tests, the human spirit could rise, stronger and more resilient, ready to conquer the tides of life once more.
Demir Aydin was a 33-year-old Turkish abalone supplier in Istanbul. Because of the scarcity of abalone in Turkey, Demir had to always order from consignment in Japan, which cost him a huge amount of money. But he didn't mind since he would make a profit. However, two notable species of this sea creature, the black and white abalone, became extinct due to worldwide overfishing in 2003, so little was exported to Turkey. It became so scarce that business wasn't going well for Demir, so he started looking for options. Upon inquiry, Demir heard that the rare white and black abalone were still abundant in the ocean of South Africa. He even heard that the abalone has a larger size and a more distinct fragrance and flavor due to the pristine marine environment in the cold waters off the coast of South Africa. To change his import route, Demir, an avid diver and abalone specialist, went to South Africa to confirm the information before deciding what to do. On getting to Cape Town, Demir lodged at a hotel before linking up with a local abalone seller. Fortunately, the seller, Anav, was also a Turkish national living in Cape Town, so he had no difficulty with the language. Anav showed him several bowls of abalone, ready to be packed for export. He explained everything about their quality and treated him to a nice dish of the sea creature. However, Demir insisted that he go into the water and verify before sealing any contract. He prompted Anav to lead him straight to the beach, since he had just a week to spend in South Africa before flying back to Istanbul. So he had to verify himself, seal the contract, and check his first consignment in Cape Town before traveling back to receive them in Istanbul. However, Anav told him that he had to visit Turkish nationals in Cape Town for a general meeting, so he wouldn't be able to lead him that day, and even Demir had to rest from the tiring journey. After much persuasion, Demir followed Anav to meet the other Turkish at the bar beach on the city's east side. As they got closer to the beach, Demir asked Anav where they were going. Demir mentioned that he had left his swimming gear at his warehouse because Anav had told him that they were meeting people from their town. Anav later replied that they were going to the right destination. The Turkish nationals in Cape Town organized beach soccer, and he wanted Demir to participate. Demir wanted to excuse himself, but Anav remained adamant. He even said this water area had no abalone if he tries to look for one, so Demir had no choice but to join the annual event. He teamed up with Anav and 3 other Turks. The stipulated time for each game was 10 minutes, which would result in a penalty after a draw in normal time. So they defeated several teams till they reached the quarterfinal. After their defeat, Demir and his new colleagues reclined on a chair to discuss issues in their home country. After several hours, the match ended. Anav dropped Demir at his hotel with the promise of accompanying him to the Abalone beach the next day. On getting to the beach, he first went to a seafood restaurant and had a plate of abalone to taste. He enjoyed the taste of the South African abalone and was certain that people would love it back home. After that, he changed into his diving gear and dived in. Anav had a distress call, so he left the beach to attend. Minutes into the water, Demir swam near a reef looking out for those abalones when a huge bull shark swam up to him. And in an instant, he was swallowed from the head down to his chest. The shark was trying to eat him alive. Within the twinkling of an eye, Demir had found himself inside the jaw of a 10-foot-long shark as its piercing teeth sunk into his flesh. This enormous predator tried to swallow him whole, pressing its jaw over his head and chest, fortunately protected by his diving gear. When Demir opened his eyes inside the shark's jaw, it was very dark, and he couldn't see anything because he was looking back at his throat. One thing that came to his mind was survival, which gave him new hope. After the shark took its first bite, which was less severe due to the protection of the swimming gear, It attempted to bite Demir again before vigorously shaking him. Demir felt the immense horizontal shaking, and it was really hard that he thought it would be the end. Fortunately, his fighting instinct kicked in at this point, and he unthinkingly groped around using his hand. In a desperate situation, Demir discovers an eye socket and forcefully digs his thumb into it, using all of his strength. The shark felt the pain and quickly released its captive. Demir used this opportunity to swim out of the shark's mouth and propel himself upward, swimming fast towards the shore, with blood seeping out of his injuries. While swimming ashore, Demir looked back and saw the shark following the blood trail and speeding toward him. He gathered the remaining ounce of energy in him and plunged towards the shore. Luckily for him, he reached the shallow part when the shark caught up to him, and it clamped onto the diving fin. Demir yelled to the tourist on the beach, who came to his rescue. They quickly removed the diving fin from his gear and carried him to the sandy beach. Demir was one of the few people on Earth who could say they survived being in the jaws of a great white shark. Although his bites were minimal, he had lost so much blood, which can lead to organ failure. So paramedics quickly took him to the hospital in the city, where doctors attended to the bites on his face and chest. He was able to walk out of the hospital after 3 days. He went on to seal his export contract with Anav and then flew back to Istanbul. He had learned an unforgettable lesson. With the bite marks showing gracefully on his face, he would have to keep narrating the story to whoever cared to ask. The remote beach in Australia was a slice of paradise that Jake had never experienced. The sand was soft and white, and the water was a brilliant shade of blue. It was a stark contrast to the city he had left behind. The beach was empty, and the only sound that he could hear was the gentle sound of waves hitting the shore. Jake was a 24-year-old marine biologist who was passionate about studying sharks. He had traveled to Australia to conduct his research and was excited to spend the next few months in this paradise. As the sun rose each day, Jake eagerly dove into the ocean's depths, mesmerized by the sleek and powerful sharks that called it home. He was drawn to their every movement, the flick of their tails, the graceful arch of their bodies, and the way they silently crept through the water. His fascination of these apex predators consumed him, and he spent hours studying their behavior, forgetting all else. Despite the danger that lurked beneath the surface, Jake pushed the limits of safety as he swam ever closer to the sharks. He felt invincible, lost in his own world of wonder and excitement. The adrenaline rush coursing through him as he approached these fearsome creatures was intoxicating, and he couldn't get enough. Jake's obsession with the sharks grew stronger as time passed, and he neglected even the most basic safety protocols. He was completely consumed by his passion and paid little heed to the risk he was taking. Every moment in the water was an adventure, a chance to experience the awe-inspiring beauty of the sharks up close. But as the days passed, the danger that Jake had recklessly ignored began catching up to him. The sharks, once so majestic and awe-inspiring, began to take on a sinister quality. Their movements became more aggressive, their presence more menacing. And as Jake continued to push the limits of safety, it seemed his luck was running out. Jake's heart raced as he swam alone in the vast ocean, surrounded by the eerie silence of the deep blue. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to a shark that seemed to be acting strangely. Its movements were unpredictable, darting in and out of the shadows, as if stalking its prey. As Jake watched, the shark's behavior became even more erratic, and he realized with a growing sense of unease that it was fixated on him. The creature began to circle him menacingly, its razor-sharp teeth glinting in the sunlight. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he realized he was in grave danger. The shark circled and circled for what felt like an eternity, its presence an ominous threat. Jake was paralyzed with fear, unable to move as the predator closed in. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the shark vanished into the depths of the ocean, leaving Jake alone in the dark and foreboding waters. Jake's heart pounded as he scanned the dark waters around him, searching for any sign of the shark stalking him. Suddenly, he felt a searing pain in his left leg, and he looked down to see the massive form of a great white shark clamped onto his flesh, with its razor-sharp teeth. Terror washed over Jake instantly as he realized the danger he was in. He struggled frantically, trying to break free from the beast's jaws, but it held on with an iron grip. Jake felt the crushing pressure of the shark's bite, and he cried out in agony as the water around him turned crimson with his blood. Despite the overwhelming pain, Jake fought to stay conscious, desperate to escape this nightmare. But his screams were muffled by the encompassing water, and he could feel himself growing weaker with each passing moment. As the great white continued to tear into his flesh, Jake's mind raced with thoughts of survival. He knew he had to act fast to make it out of this alive, but after a few minutes of thrashing around the water, the shark tore Jake's limb away from his fragile body before disappearing to the depths of the ocean. Jake forced himself to keep moving through the haze of agony, his aching body propelling him towards the surface. But just as he felt a glimmer of hope, the shark's jaws clamped down on his left arm, tearing into his flesh with savage force. The pain was unbearable, and Jake's vision began to blur as he struggled to stay afloat. He was certain that this was the end for him, that he would soon be dragged down to a watery grave by the relentless predator. But then, out of nowhere, a mighty orca appeared, its massive form slamming into the shark with a force that Jake could feel through the water. The shark recoiled in surprise and pain, its grip on Jake's arm loosening. Jake seized the opportunity, swimming frantically toward the surface as the orca battled the ferocious predator. With each stroke, he felt himself drawing closer to the air above, to safety and the hope of survival. The shark, unwilling to give up its prey, was poised to attack again. As it started darting towards Jake again, the orca rammed it head-on. The shark recoiled in agonizing pain. Realizing it was impossible to get to Jake, it retreated and started swimming away. The orca chased the shark, and they both disappeared in the distance. Jake was left in the water, injured and in pain. He slowly swam his way to his waiting boat, leaving a grisly trail of blood on its path. He managed to climb aboard and call for rescue. It took hours for the rescue team to arrive, but they were able to stabilize him and take him to the nearest hospital. The doctors did all they could, but repairing his mangled left leg and arm was impossible. Jake was devastated by the news. He had lost his passion and his life's work. He returned to his hometown, vowing to never set foot in the ocean again. In 1914, April brought a comforting warmth, relieving the lingering winter chill. At Lake Pontchartrain, Louisiana, the waters glimmered like a sea of diamonds under the brilliant sunshine. The vast expanse of the lake seemed to stretch out forever, its ends disappearing into the horizon like a mirage. The gentle breeze carried with it the sweet fragrance of blooming flowers and the salty aroma of the sea. The rustling leaves and birds chirping created a symphony of sounds, a tranquil melody that played perfectly with the lapping of waves against the shore. In the picturesque setting, Patricia Kelly, a vibrant and energetic young woman, joyfully played in the alluring waters of the lake. Her long honey-colored hair flowed down her back like a waterfall, complementing her graceful movements as she swam. With the agility of a dolphin, her slender body glided through the water, embodying a sense of freedom and tranquility, detached from the worries of everyday life. Patricia was surrounded by the lively chatter of her friends as they splashed around in the cool waters of the lake. The sun beat down on them, creating a golden aura that shone on their faces and glistened on the water's surface. The playful banter between them was punctuated by the occasional shriek of delight as they dove beneath the surface, reveling in the refreshing embrace of the lake. As Patricia swam, She could feel the cold water enveloping her body, taking the heat out of her skin. She relished the sensation, feeling invigorated and alive. The water was deep and mysterious, as she could feel the pull of the depths calling out to her. However, Patricia noticed that her friends were not as eager to venture out into the middle of the lake. They seemed hesitant, staying close to the shore and glaring at the water's murky depths. Curious, Patricia asked her friends why they were so hesitant to explore the deeper parts of the lake. They hesitated, exchanging nervous glances before finally admitting that they had seen a massive dark figure lurking under the water's surface. Patricia scoffed, dismissing their fears as mere phantoms of their imagination. She encouraged them to embrace their sense of adventure and explore the wonders of the lake's deeper waters. Without hesitation, Patricia began to swim towards the middle of the lake, eager to show her friends that there was nothing to fear. The water grew colder and darker as she swam, and the shadows beneath her seemed to deepen. Yet she pressed on, propelled by a sense of curiosity and bravery. As Patricia splashed around in the middle of the vast lake, the water shimmered in the warm sun, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of carefree joy. Her friends paddled nearby, but Patricia's adventurous spirit led her to venture further. She laughed and called out to her friends, assuring them that the water was safe and free from danger. But as the words left her lips, an unseen terror grabbed her leg with crushing force. Pain, as she had never felt before, seared through Patricia's body, and she let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed across the serene lake. Her friends quickly realized something was happening, but were frozen in fear, unsure what to do. The grip on Patricia's leg was unrelenting, and panic set in. She frantically looked down, hoping for some explanation, but what she saw made her heart sink. A monstrous great white shark, nearly twice her size, had clamped down onto her leg with razor-sharp teeth. The beast's jaws were like a vice, easily tearing through her flesh and bone. Patricia's screams were drowned out by the shark thrashing violently, like a demon from the depths of the lake. In desperation, Patricia's survival instincts kicked in, and she began to punch and claw at the shark, trying to fight it off. But her efforts were futile, and the beast only became more enraged, attacking her with even greater ferocity. Each second felt like an eternity as the shark mauled her mercilessly, leaving Patricia helpless and vulnerable to its wrath. As Patricia thrashed in the water, her friends screamed in terror, their cries echoing across the lake. The once tranquil waters had turned into a crimson pool, tainted by the blood that flowed from Patricia's wound. Despite the pain, Patricia fought to stay afloat, pushing and punching the massive predator in a desperate attempt to free herself. The shark finally released her leg, but it was too late. Patricia was too injured to swim back to shore quickly, and her friends watched in horror as the shark continued to circle her like a vulture, waiting for its next opportunity to attack. Suddenly, the water erupted as the shark leapt out with breathtaking speed. It was like a torpedo, homing in on its target with deadly accuracy. The shark's massive jaws opened wide, engulfing Patricia's head and upper body in one swift, bone-chilling snap. Blood sprayed across the water's surface as the shark crunched on her flesh and bones, decapitating her instantly. As quickly as the attack had begun, it was over. Patricia's mangled carcass slowly sank into the water, her leg and head missing. The shark, sated by its prize, retreated into the depths, leaving behind a gruesome reminder of the tragedy. The authorities arrived at the lake to investigate. After a long search, they found Patricia's mutilated remains on the banks of the lake. Her friends could hardly bear to look at the gruesome sight, and the memory of that day would haunt them for years to come. As the sun began to peek over the horizon, casting a warm glow over the tranquil waters of Kauai, Hawaii, the waves rose and fell in perfect rhythm. They were like graceful dancers, their movements fluid and hypnotic. luring surfers to their embrace. And among the daring riders was Max, a fearless 17-year-old who reveled in the thrill of the ocean. Max and his friends were in their element, their bodies attuned to the ebb and flow of the waves. With each surge, they launched onto their boards, feeling the exhilaration of the wind in their hair and the salty spray on their faces. The waves were a playground where they could forget the world and live in the moment. As they rode the waves with effortless skill, the sun beat down on them, casting shadows that danced across the water. The world seemed to fade away, leaving only the surfers and their boards riding the waves like it was their last day. And at that moment, nothing else mattered but the sheer joy of being alive and feeling the power of the ocean beneath them. As Max bobbed up and down on his surfboard, scanning the horizon for the perfect wave, the ocean around him seemed to pulse with electric energy. The sun beat down on his skin, warming him even as the salty sea spray cooled him. It was a moment of perfect equilibrium, a suspended moment stretching into eternity. But beneath the surface, something lurked. Max's attention was so fixed on the rolling waves ahead that he didn't notice the dark shape moving beneath him. It was a creature of the deep, a shadowy silhouette that slid silently through the water, its powerful form invisible to the surfer above. The serene beauty of the ocean was shattered in an instant, as Max's body was jolted by an immense crushing pressure on his left leg. His mind raced, trying to make sense of the sudden attack as his eyes darted towards his limb. But what he saw was like a scene from a nightmare. The water around him was stained with deep foreboding red, and it became clear that the cause was the vicious predator that had latched onto him. With rows of razor-sharp teeth and a predatory gaze, a tiger shark was clamping down on Max's leg, its jaws locked in a deadly vice. In a frantic panic, Max struggled to free himself from the jaws of the tiger shark. But the more he fought, the harder the shark bit down, its powerful muscles shaking Max's body like a rag doll. It was as if he were nothing more than a plaything in the shark's relentless grip. The pain was excruciating, like nothing he had ever felt before. Each time the shark shook its head back and forth, Max felt his bones grinding together, his flesh tearing apart. He knew he had to find a way to escape, or he would die in the heart of the ocean at the mercy of the shark's savage hunger. Max's survival instincts kicked in, and he knew he had to fight for his life. With the adrenaline pumping through his veins, he focused all his energy on getting the shark to release him. Drawing on every ounce of strength, he balled his fist and launched a barrage of punches at the shark's face. Each blow landed with a sickening thud, the force of the impact reverberating through his arm. The sound of flesh hitting flesh echoed through the water, punctuated by the shark's agonized thrashing. Max's arm trembled with the strain of each blow, but he refused to give up. He kept hitting, his knuckles slamming into the shark's snout repeatedly until finally, the shark released its grip on his leg. Max's heart pounded as he kicked and thrashed, trying to distance himself from the still dangerous predator as much as possible. Max's body was writhing in agony, every moment sending waves of pain coursing through his veins. As he struggled to swim towards the safety of the shore, a strange sensation started to take hold of his right leg. His muscles were spasming uncontrollably, and the feeling turned into something far more sinister. Max's heart pounded in his chest as he looked down towards his right leg, expecting to see it there as usual, but the sight that greeted him was nothing short of harrowing. His once whole leg was now nothing more than a bloody stump, the gaping wound still oozing blood and seawater. The jagged edges of the torn flesh were a testament to the ferocity of the shark's attack. Realizing that Max was in trouble, his friends sprang into action, racing towards him as soon as they saw him struggling in the water. One of them quickly improvised a tourniquet from the leash on his board, tightly wrapping it around Max's leg in a desperate bid to stem the bleeding. An ambulance was quickly summoned, and Max was rushed to the hospital, his life hanging in the balance. The surgeons worked tirelessly to repair the damage, carefully suturing the torn flesh and muscle back together. The operation was successful, but the road to recovery would be long and arduous. Max lay in the hospital bed for the next few weeks, his body battered and bruised, but his spirit unbroken. Despite the trauma he had suffered, he knew he was one of the fortunate ones and had been given a second chance at life.
A terrifying encounter in the balmy, pristine waters of the Bahamas unfolded, forever etched in the annals of oceanic terror. This is the story of an American tourist and a ferocious tiger shark, a tale that would send ripples of fear through the hearts of those venturing into the ocean. In 2001, Sarah Davis, an adventurous 28-year-old from Los Angeles, embarked on a tropical escape to the stunning Bahamian archipelago. The allure of crystal-clear waters, vibrant coral reefs, and the promise of an underwater paradise drew her to the islands. With a free spirit and a thirst for exploration, Sarah sought to embrace the ocean's depths, a world she had always been curious about. As the morning sun bathed the coast of Symphony Cove in a golden glow, Sarah donned her snorkel gear, excitement dancing in her eyes. She had booked a snorkeling excursion, eager to explore the underwater wonderland teeming with marine life. Accompanied by fellow tourists, she set sail on a catamaran, the anticipation building with every nautical mile. With its intricate coral formations and kaleidoscopic marine life, the Bahamas was a haven for snorkeling enthusiasts. Sarah, an experienced swimmer with a love for the ocean, was captivated by the allure of this vibrant underwater world. The turquoise hues beckoned, promising an adventure beyond her wildest dreams. The group geared up as the catamaran anchored near the reef, anticipation bubbling in the tropical air. The water was inviting, a vast expanse of shimmering blue. With excitement and nervousness coursing through her, Sarah was among the first to plunge. The sea welcomed her, enveloping her in a refreshing embrace. Unbeknownst to Sarah, a formidable presence lurked beneath the waves. The tiger shark, a predator with an insatiable appetite and a fearsome reputation, patrolled the ocean depths. Its powerful form sliced through the water, a silent force of nature seeking its next meal. As Sarah swam amidst the coral, a flash of movement caught her eye. Turning, she found herself face to face with the imposing figure of the tiger shark. In a surge of panic, Sarah struggled to recall the safety instructions imparted before the snorkeling expedition. The adrenaline surged, and her heart pounded in her chest. The world around her seemed to slow, the terror of the situation enveloping her. The tiger shark, drawn by the scent of the ocean and the sight of the tourists, circled, its curiosity piqued. Sarah, her mind racing, grappled with the reality of her situation. She was an intruder in the shark's domain, a guest in the home of a fearsome predator. In the face of the danger, Sarah's instincts kicked in. She knew she had to act with precision and determination to escape the jaws of the tiger shark. The encounter had escalated into a battle for survival, and she would need every ounce of courage and wit to navigate the treacherous waters. The predator circled, its eyes fixated on her, a chilling reminder that she was no longer at the top of the food chain in this realm. Sarah's heart pounded, and her mind raced as she remembered the tales of the tiger shark's power and cruelty. She knew she had to stay calm and fight with every ounce of strength. As the shark closed in, she mustered the courage to kick and thrash, using every skill to fend off the imminent danger. But the tiger shark was relentless, undeterred by her struggle. It lunged with a sudden burst of primal ferocity, and its jaws snapped shut around Sarah's lower body. Pain surged through her as the predator's teeth pierced her flesh, crushing bone and muscle. She screamed, her voice muffled by the water, a cry of agony reverberating through the depths. In those harrowing moments, Sarah's survival instincts spiked to the forefront. With an explosion of strength and willpower, she gathered every ounce of energy to fight back. Her hands clawed and pounded, desperately aiming for the shark's sensitive snout. The ocean turned crimson as the battle between humans and beasts intensified. As the struggle continued, Sarah felt a searing pain shoot through her leg, realizing with horror that the shark had torn away a significant portion of it. Blood clouded the water around her, an ominous reminder of her dire situation. Summoning every ounce of resilience, Sarah made a fateful decision. Desperate, she freed herself from the shark's grasp, her instincts guiding her toward the surface. With the strength born of desperation, she fought her way to the catamaran, her life hanging in the balance. Her fellow tourists and crew acted swiftly, pulling her aboard the vessel. The agony was overwhelming, but relief washed over her amidst the pain. The predator had been defeated, but at a tremendous cost. Amidst the chaos and adrenaline-fueled aftermath of the brutal tiger shark attack, Sarah Davis was airlifted to a nearby medical facility. The extent of her injuries was staggering. Her lower leg had been gruesomely severed in the attack, leaving her in a critical state of shock and pain. A dedicated team of doctors and nurses worked tirelessly at the hospital to stabilize Sarah and address her life-threatening injuries. The trauma from the shark's bite was severe, and the decision to amputate her leg below the knee was painful yet necessary to save her life. The shark attack news sent shockwaves through the tourist community and beyond. It was a stark reminder of the primal nature of the ocean, a world where survival often danced on the razor's edge. In the aftermath of the attack, as Sarah began the long road to recovery and adaptation to her new reality, she would find strength and purpose in her experience. The tiger shark, one of the ocean's apex predators, had targeted Sarah in a case of mistaken identity. These sharks are known for their voracious appetites and often feed on various prey, including fish, seals, and even other sharks. However, they can be opportunistic and occasionally make errors in identifying potential food sources. In this instance, the shark likely mistook Sarah for prey due to the commotion in the water and the movement of her limbs. The Bahamas is known for its tiger shark population, which is drawn to the warm, nutrient-rich waters and abundant marine life. The Symphony Cove, where Sarah had ventured, was known to be a habitat for these formidable predators. While shark attacks are statistically rare, the presence of these apex predators serves as a reminder of the untamed nature of the ocean. As news of the attack spread, shark experts and conservationists emphasized the importance of understanding shark behavior and adopting preventive measures while venturing into the ocean. Sarah's ordeal became a catalyst for raising awareness about responsible snorkeling and diving practices, and the significance of shark conservation efforts in maintaining the delicate balance of marine ecosystems. For Sarah, the road to recovery was grueling. Physically, she faced months of rehabilitation and prosthetic fittings to regain mobility. Emotionally, she battled fear and trauma, summoning every ounce of strength to rebuild her life. As the world watched Sarah's remarkable journey, the ocean continued its timeless ebb and flow. The tiger shark still roamed the Bahamian waters, a reminder of the ocean's untamed beauty and the delicate dance between predator and prey. Sarah's story, forever etched in the hearts of those who heard it, served as a cautionary tale and an inspiration, a testament to the strength that can be found even in the face of the most terrifying of trials.
Fresh from retirement, Olivia Benjamin persuaded her 68-year-old husband Elias to a vacation in the beach town of Florida. She had been in Budapest all her life, with work tying her down. Olivia has a deep passion for adventure and yet lacks the time and financial means to pursue it. Now that she was retired and with no work to tend to, no child to nurture, and a huge gratuity paid to her account, she believed the timing was perfect. So in the summer of 1963, which coincides with their 30th wedding anniversary, Olivia and Elias informed their only daughter about the vacation to the U.S. Maria, their daughter, was married and had a family of her own, so she entrusted the care of her mother to her dad. She helped them pack their luggage and even escorted them to the airport as they boarded the Florida-bound flight. When they arrived in Florida, they checked into their earlier booked hotel and applied for a vacation guide named Avila. With the guide, Olivia planned how to spend their next 2-week vacation. They first visited an amusement park, where Avila erected a number balloon at the entrance, indicating their year of being together, and a cake was presented to them. They spent the day having a lot of fun. Still, Olivia knows the next day would be very interesting, as the next thing on their schedule is a tour of the beach. Olivia has been living all of her life in the landlocked country of Hungary without any chance to explore a good natural beach. Now presented with the opportunity, she knew she had to seize it and make the most of it. They set out to Cocoa Beach the next day without stopping for breakfast at the hotel. She had in her jotter a list of things she wanted to do at the beach. Having breakfast at an open cafe overlooking the serene beach was part of it. Cocoa Beach was renowned for its calm and consistent waves. That, combined with the water having enough shallow and clean parts, makes it an ideal spot to spend all day. And Olivia is planning to spend it all, as she did at the amusement park. After having breakfast and a cup of hot cappuccino to keep her awake, Olivia held Elias's hand and walked the beach barefoot with Avila taking pictures. Elias first protested against this, but Olivia remained adamant till he gave in. They walked the breadth of the beach facing the water, feeling the white sand as it caressed their feet. The waves even blew at them when walking the shoreline, with Avila capturing everything. While walking gently toward the guide, Olivia said she needed to save everything to show their daughter and friends back in Budapest. Olivia convinced Elias to make a promise that they would visit the beach on every vacation. Elias wasn't against the opinion, as he longed to witness the pure joy and radiant smile that adorned his wife's face whenever she immersed herself in her favorite beach activities. After walking back to beach chairs, they informed Avila about the next thing, which was renting out a boat and sailing on the Atlantic. Avila excused himself after helping them to rent a boat propelled by a small engine. He sensed that it was a romantic boat ride. Elias and Olivia entered the boat and began their journey toward the deep part of scenic white water. Olivia has longed for this kind of ride, as it provides a way of reconnecting with their love life while enjoying the beauty of nature. The water allowed them to relax and enjoy each other's company. While on the water, Elias reaches for his bag and brings out their wedding album. They shared throwbacks while giggling loudly. Elias knew deeply that the vacation was worth it, as there was no good place enough in Budapest to reaffirm his unwavering love for his sweetheart. Being a good swimmer at Budapest lakes and swimming pools, Olivia entered the water while holding on to the boat. She occasionally throws water at Elias, urging him to swim with her. However, he remained adamant about staying on the boat. A few minutes into this, Elias heard a scream and a sudden thug at the boat. He quickly rose to see his wife struggling to stay afloat. Elias dived into the water without thinking twice to check what was holding his wife's leg. When he discovers an enormous great white shark biting at both legs of his wife, he charges his blows at the shark's nose, believing it to be one of the beast's weak points. The aggressive white shark held on to Olivia, but had to release its grip when Elias didn't stop hitting its nose. Elias held Olivia and swam upward till their heads could be seen. He screamed for help, but the loud pops and reggae at the beach deprived anyone of hearing. They had to keep moving, so Elias held Olivia's hand as he swam towards the shore. Olivia couldn't guide herself to the shore because both legs were badly damaged during the struggle with the predator. After some meters left to reach the shallow part of the water, the shark attacked again and swallowed Olivia up to her arm. Just as Elias was about to react and reach out to grab the shark, it violently tore apart her body, leaving only her arm in Elias's clutches. He couldn't narrate how he reached the shore. He rushed back to Avila while holding on to his wife's arm. Seeing this, Avila hurriedly approached a lifeguard and talked about what transpired in the ocean's depths. Swift action was taken, and helicopters were deployed to search the area, but neither Olivia nor the shark could be seen. The search went on for days, but it remained fruitless. Elias waited for 3 days, hoping that at least his wife's remains would be found. Still, when the search yielded nothing, he canceled the vacation and traveled sadly back to Hungary, with his wife's arm neatly packed in ice beside him. When he returned home, he broke the sad news, and a befitting burial was given to the arm in place of Olivia. Elias accepted the situation and chose to face reality courageously, trying to find things that would bring comfort to his life. In 1961, Wilson Dooling, an experienced scuba diver and spearfisher, thrived in the sweltering heat of Key Biscayne, Florida. The atmosphere was filled with humidity and the refreshing scent of the sea. The breathtaking beauty of the location captivated him as the vast ocean stretched out before him like an infinite blue expanse. Dooling's passion for exploring underwater came alive in this place. With each dive, he encountered mesmerizing sights, maneuvering through colorful coral reefs and vibrant schools of fish. On this particular day, Wilson was accompanied by his trusted friend Marcus. Together, they ventured along the coast of Key Biscayne, searching for the perfect catch. The sea was calm, and the sun was beating relentlessly on their backs, but Wilson was unfazed. He was a master of this environment, intimately acquainted with its quirks and dangers. As they ventured deeper into the ocean, Wilson's senses were heightened, scanning the depths for any signs of danger. He knew that the bull sharks that prowled these waters could be unpredictable, but he also knew that they generally kept to themselves, leaving the scuba divers alone. As he delved deeper into the water, he saw a massive bull shark 15 feet long lurking in the distance. Wilson had seen bull sharks before, but this one was different. It was larger than most, and it didn't seem to be in a hurry to leave. Instead, it circled him as if studying him with a sense of curiosity. Wilson tried to ignore it and focused on his task, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the shark was watching him closely. Despite his attempts to ignore the shark, the creature's presence grew more ominous with each passing moment. Wilson was on high alert, aware that this wasn't normal behavior for a bull shark. His attention shifted from fishing to the shark, which had become more menacing with each passing minute. The once clear waters now appeared murky and dark, as if the shark had brought a cloud of unease. The water churned as the massive bull shark streaked towards Wilson and Marcus, its dorsal fin slicing through the water like a knife. As it closed in, Wilson's heart raced with fear and confusion. He had seen countless sharks before, but this one was different. It seemed to be studying him, eyeing him up like a piece of prey. Frantically, Wilson signaled to Marcus, but before they could react, the shark lunged towards them with incredible speed, its powerful jaws gaping wide. The air was filled with bubbles as Wilson fired his spear gun in desperation, but it was too late. The shark's teeth sank into his flesh, tearing through skin, muscle, and bone with terrifying force. Wilson's body thrashed wildly as the shark shook him like a rag doll, its razor-sharp teeth leaving behind gaping wounds that spurted blood into the water. Marcus watched in horror as his friend's body was ripped apart by the frenzied predator. Marcus's heart raced as he watched the attack unfold before his very eyes. Time seemed to slow down as he scrambled to come up with a plan, any plan, to save his friend. But before he could act, the shark's powerful jaws clamped down on Wilson's legs again, tearing through flesh and bone easily. The water turned red with blood, and Marcus could feel his heart pounding in his chest. With a sudden burst of strength, the shark jerked Wilson's body to and fro, shaking him like a chew toy. And then, in a single violent motion, the creature ripped both of William's legs from his body, leaving him to drift lifelessly in the water. The relentless shark, undeterred by the havoc it had caused, persisted in its ferocious attack, driven by insatiable hunger. In a horrifying moment, it savagely locked its jaws onto Wilson's torso, its teeth sinking deep into his flesh, causing agonizing pain and tearing through his muscles. Marcus knew he had to act quickly as the shark continued its attack. With steady hands, he aimed his spear gun at the monster, its barbs glinting in the sunlight. Taking a deep breath, he pulled the trigger, the sharp point of the spear sinking deep into the shark's gills. The beast thrashed and twisted, writhing in agony before retreating to the murky depths. Marcus struggled to heave Wilson's motionless body onto the boat, the weight of his friend's remains like an anchor dragging him down. He could feel the tears mixing with the salt water on his face, a futile attempt to wash away the pain and anguish he felt inside. But it was too late. Wilson was already gone, his life snuffed out by the brutal attack of the bull shark. Marcus could only stare in disbelief at the mangled remains of his friend, the water around them still stained with blood. He knew that this incident would forever haunt him, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the dangers that lurked in the depths below.
In the early 2000s, along the sun-kissed shores of Azure Haven Beach, nestled in California, a tranquil surfing haven, a tale unfolded that would send shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned surfers. This is the story of a harrowing great white shark attack, an incident in the annals of coastal terror. With its famed Steamer Lane and Pleasure Point surf spots, Azure Haven Beach was an idyllic seaside town. The community embraced the waves, Their lives were intertwined with the ebb and flow of the Pacific Ocean. Among the wave riders was young Emily Turner, an avid surfer with a love for the sea. At just 12 years old, Emily had a heart full of dreams and a soul as wild and free as the ocean she loved. Emily's brother, Jason Turner, aged 18, was a seasoned surfer with years of experience riding the waves of Azure Haven Beach. The siblings shared a passion for surfing that bordered on spirituality. Their bond went beyond family ties, forged in the waves, a shared love for the ocean, and the thrill of riding its majestic swells. On a fateful summer day in 2004, the sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, a picturesque backdrop for a day of surfing. Emily and Jason, united by their love for the ocean, ventured into the waves, ready to conquer the surf and enjoy a day of youthful adventure. As the siblings embraced the surf, riding the waves and feeling the salty breeze against their faces, they were blissfully unaware of the lurking danger beneath. The shark was on the prowl that day, a silent menace navigating the depths. Its keen senses detected the presence of prey above. The playful surfers lost in the joy of the waves. A 16-foot great white shark, a master of stealth and power, began to circle on the unsuspecting duo. The serenity of the day was about to be shattered by an event that would alter their lives forever. The incident would become a stark reminder that even in the beauty of nature, danger could strike without warning, leaving their family and the community praying for their survival. Chaos erupted as the great white shark surged from the depths. The ocean roared with the violence of the attack. Emily found herself in the jaws of the relentless predator. Emily's brother Jason was nearby, his eyes widening in horror as he witnessed the horrific attack on his sister. Time seemed to slow down as he realized the danger they faced. Instinct took over, and without hesitation, he propelled himself towards the commotion, his powerful strokes pushing through the churning waves. The shark's immense form circled back, its eyes fixated on Emily. In a frantic struggle, the beast thrashed, its serrated teeth tearing into Emily's arm and side. Blood mingled with the ocean, a macabre testament to the brutality of the encounter. Emily's cries of pain and terror filled the air, a heart-wrenching symphony of agony. Jason, driven by a potent blend of fear and love for his sister, lunged towards the shark, screaming and splashing, desperate to divert the predator's attention. His bare hands pounded the water, mimicking the thrashing of injured prey. With adrenaline pumping through his veins, Jason's primal instincts took over in that fleeting moment. He lunged again, landing a solid punch on the shark's snout. The impact was enough to startle the predator, and it released its grip on Emily. She was free, but the battle was far from over. Grimacing from the pain, Emily swam towards Jason, her arm mangled and bleeding profusely. Jason, his heart racing, took hold of his sister, his protective instincts fueling his determination to get her to safety. He shouted for help, hoping the other surfers had noticed the commotion. Enraged by the pain and chaos, the shark circled back, its cold black eyes locking onto the siblings. Another surfer, a seasoned local named Lucas, paddled towards them in sheer bravery. He shouted at the top of his lungs, rallying nearby surfers and forming a protective barrier around the injured duo. Together, they united against the relentless shark, brandishing their surfboards like makeshift weapons. Their combined efforts seemed to deter the beast, forcing it to retreat momentarily. It was a harrowing battle between man and nature as they fought to keep the predator at bay and protect their fallen comrade. As the shark circled, assessing its options, a rescue boat arrived on the scene, its motor roaring as it sped toward the group. The ship's presence seemed to deter the great white, and it disappeared into the depths, leaving a trail of fear in its wake. The boat reached the surfers and Emily was carefully hoisted aboard. The crew immediately tended to her injuries, applying pressure to staunch the bleeding. The pain was excruciating, but Emily held on, her eyes fixed on her brother with gratitude and love evident in her gaze. The events of that day forever altered their lives. The attack was a stark reminder of the primal forces that ruled the ocean and left an indelible mark on the tight-knit surfing community of Azure Haven Beach. Emily's courage and Jason's heroism had shown them the strength that emerged when faced with the darkest trials. They had met the jaws of death and survived, forever bound by the scars of that terrifying day in the summer of 2004. In the aftermath of the traumatic white shark attack, The coastal community of Azure Haven Beach rallied around the Turner siblings. Emily's injuries were severe, and the road to recovery would be long and challenging. The attack had left its mark physically and emotionally, with the scars a constant reminder of that fateful day. Emily underwent multiple surgeries and grueling physical therapy to regain the use of her injured arm. The support from her family, friends, and the surfing community became her lifeline during the arduous healing process. Jason stood by Emily's side throughout her recovery, his unwavering support a beacon of strength for his little sister. He became her rock, encouraging her every step of the way, a silent promise always to protect her. The incident had a profound impact on the surfing community. They banded together to raise awareness about shark safety and conservation, urging fellow surfers to prioritize precautions while enjoying the waves. The ocean, once feared for its hidden dangers, became a realm of caution and education, a place where respect for its wonders went hand in hand with the thrill of surfing. For Emily and Jason, the shark attack reshaped their lives, instilling a profound respect for the sea and the intricate balance of nature. They became beacons of hope and strength, proving that even in the face of the worst circumstances, love, courage, and unity could triumph over fear, and the scars that remained would be a testament to their resilience and the power of the human spirit.
As the sun began to rise on a clear morning, Michelle Thorne's boat could be seen from afar, anchored near the shore of Dyer Island in Gansby. She had traveled a long way to explore the deep sea and capture some of her YouTube channel's most stunning underwater footage. Michelle was a famous YouTuber known for her underwater exploration videos, often receiving millions of views. She was known for her adventurous spirit, tenacity, and love for the ocean. Michelle donned her scuba gear, and with her underwater camera and light, she began her descent into the blue depths of the ocean. She swam through the clear waters, encountering colorful schools of fish and intricate coral reefs. As she swam deeper, the water became colder, and the light began to dim. But she was determined to find something special to add to her collection of underwater footage. She explored for hours, but it wasn't until she came across an intriguing underwater cave that she found what she was looking for. Michelle's curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to explore the cave. The scene in the underwater cave was eerie and gave Michelle an uneasy feeling. The dark waters and silence starkly contrasted with the vibrant colors and noises of the ocean floor. But she pressed on, hoping to find something worth filming. As Michelle ventured deeper into the cave, she couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. The water was getting murkier, and she could barely see her hands before her face. Her heart raced as she felt a sudden disturbance in the water, causing her to stop in her tracks. Was she being followed? The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end, and she could feel a tingle down her spine. She spun her light and camera toward the direction of the movement, and her heart pounded in her chest. The beam of her flashlight illuminated nothing but darkness and stirred up mud in the waters. Michelle's breath came out in quick, shallow gasps as she tried to steady her nerves. She slowly moved the camera and lighted around the cave, hoping to catch sight of whatever was lurking in the shadows. Just when she thought she was alone, she saw a flicker of movement in the distance. Her heart skipped a beat, and a knot formed in her stomach. She peered into the darkness, straining to see what was there. Was it a fish, a seal, or something much larger and more dangerous? Her pulse raced as she approached the source of the movement, her camera lens trained on the murky waters ahead. A chill ran down Michelle's spine as she peered into the murky depths. Suddenly, she spotted movement, a shadowy shape gliding closer and closer. Her eyes widened in horror as the massive form of a 16-foot great white shark emerged from the gloom, its razor-sharp teeth gleaming in the dim light. Michelle's heart pounded as she realized she was face to face with one of the ocean's most fearsome predators. She tried to back away slowly, but her feet refused to obey her commands. The shark approached, its jaws gaping wide, ready to strike. Michelle's grip on her camera tightened, but in her moment of terror, Her fingers betrayed her, and the device slipped from her grasp, crashing to the ground with a gentle thud. As the camera's light flickered and illuminated her petrified expression, Michelle braced herself for the inevitable attack, praying she would survive the encounter. The great white shark launched itself at Michelle with lightning speed. She barely had time to register what was happening before it was upon her. The jaws of the massive predator snapped shut around her neck, swallowing her head whole in one brutal attack. The force of the shark's bite was immense, and Michelle's body was no match for its razor-sharp teeth. Michelle's camera captured the harrowing scene as the shark thrashed around, its massive frame causing the water to churn and roil. Michelle's initial reaction was to fight back, but her blows were weak and ineffective against the powerful predator. Blood poured from her wounds, mingling with the water and turning it a sickening shade of red. The shark showed no mercy as it mauled the helpless YouTuber. Its teeth tore into her flesh, shredding muscle and bone with ease. Michelle's screams were muffled by the water, but her agony was clear as day in the footage captured by the camera. The shark's eyes were wild with hunger and rage as it continued its attack, oblivious to the horror it was inflicting. With a sudden gut-wrenching force, the shark's jaws clamped down on Michelle's flesh, tearing it apart like tissue paper. Pain shot through her body as she tried to fight back, but it was useless. In a split second, the world around her faded to black. Silence hung heavy in the water as the shark continued its vicious assault. Michelle's body went limp, floating lifelessly as the predator tore into her flesh. With a sickening snap, her body was suddenly severed from her head, leaving a grotesque sight in its wake. The shark didn't stop there, though. It seemed to relish in the destruction it had wrought, devouring Michelle's mangled carcass with frenzied fervor. Her camera recorded the horror for all to see, transmitting the footage back to her computer in real time. A week after Michelle's disappearance, a widely publicized search was conducted to locate the missing YouTuber. After 9 days, the boat she rented was located and investigated in search of possible foul play. Upon opening her computer, the gruesome scene was uncovered by the investigating police. Michelle's death scene went viral, and just as she wanted to have views on social media when she was alive, she received so many when she died. But her family, friends, and fans were left devastated by the tragedy. Her death was a stark reminder of the dangers of the ocean and the risks that come with exploring its depths.